Happy Monday, degenerates. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, your boy, as always, the man on the mic, Clint, and we are rocking the baby blues. It's been a minute. We took a little dip, the week off. We played some PFL, didn't go our way, but we turn it right around, come back with a nice big plus 7.75 unit win at UFC 287. I'm mixing my 7s and 5s up because of all these stupid numbers in my head. But either way, it's a win. We got the money chain on. We got the stimmy check on. I hope everybody did just as well over the weekend. I hope everybody kicked some serious ass at the UFC event over the weekend. What's up, Dream, in the chat? We got CT710, the Grateful Dude, Mushroom, already hanging out with us here today. Hope everybody is kicking some serious ass. Hey, we've got UFC Kansas City coming up this weekend, and I couldn't be happier. I'm just so relaxed and chill right now, folks. I don't know. Most of you are part of the Twitter sphere, but those of you who are, YouTube exclusive, you need to know we hit a big milestone this past week. So last year, I dug myself a grave, minus 70 units, did it all right in front of you guys here on stream. It was embarrassing. It sucked. It was a little rough. And for the first time since I started this stupid podcast 4 years ago, I was in the hole. Because my first year podcasting, I won money. Everybody head in the clouds, rookie, beginner's luck. The next year, the second year of the show, I crashed, didn't have a good year, but I didn't lose more than I had won the previous year. I've never been net negative. Not a single time in the history of this podcast have I been net negative until last year. And with us being up 28 units so far in 2023, 28 units up so far this year. That puts us back in the black, baby. You're right. I am officially positive again as a handicapper on MMA since taking it seriously. And it feels good. It feels good, but I'm not satisfied. Even is not enough. I want to be back in the plus. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in some heavy hitters for you this weekend. None other than the boys from Chronic Combat Conversations are joining us here on the show to break down UFC Kansas City. Welcome on in, TB and Guru MMA boys. What is going on?
Dude, thanks so much for having us. What an introduction, by the way. What an incredible setup you have, and truly an honor to be on the show. Been watching you for a very long time as a fan. We've had you on the show multiple times. Truly a family, friends. You know what I'm saying? We're one and the same right now, but we really appreciate the invite. We're ready to cash some checks. That's what we're here for.
Clint, it's such an honor, and dude, feeling comfy here, getting settled in the house, kicking my feet up, ready to go, and let's cash some tickets, man. I know it's about to get funky up in here.
It's awesome. I can't wait.
We do get a little funky. I don't know if your followers may know us. We get a little funky up in here.
I love it. You guys will fit right in. So a lot of you may not know Chronic Combat, but these are my boys. They've been longtime fans of the Die Hard MMA podcast, started their own show, and are just excellent at what they do. A whole lot of fun. They match the vibe that we do here with the Die Hard MMA podcast. Real chill. Have a good time with it. And they had me on their show a couple of times, and I've been extremely grateful. They're a ton of fun to talk fights with, and I thought it was time to introduce them to the rest of you. So very first thing you need to do, check their handles, give them a follow on Twitter, look for Chronic Combat Conversations because they do a weekly breakdown show themselves, and make sure you give these guys a follow and show them some support. We'll show you why you should over the course of the evening because we're going to have a good time.
Absolutely. It would mean the world at Chronic Combat Conversations on YouTube. at Chronic Combat on Twitter. I mean,
There we are.
that's where to find us, guys. And
Right in the
There
chat.
we
That's
go.
it's a bad boy right there.
we love it.
Perfect. Well, we
return.
got to
right?
set you guys up though. How'd you do last week?
So let's be honest. We couldn't buy a win until which was what our best bets, which was on the co-main and the main. We liked the main event not to go the distance. That was one of our best bets, and I think our best bet was the co-main to go the distance.
Yes.
So when you think about things like that, I was talking to TV about this. I think Die Hard, and you said it, Clint, when you said that we do what we do well. I truly think that we are elite at breaking down fights. We are not professional gamblers. So, and we bring in, and that's one of the best parts of our show. If you end up watching it, we always bring in guests like Clint, like Leah. I mean, wonderful handicappers to help us in the professional gambling aspect of it. But in terms of breaking it down, I really do feel like we have an edge. It was just in terms of, I mean, just for dichotomy's sake, let's just go with the first fight. Jacqueline and Sam Hughes, right? It was Jacqueline round one sub. We picked that the whole way and maybe got a little too carried away in that, but also talked about it on the show, broke it down. Sam Hughes' decision was absolutely something that we had talked about and wanted to touch on. And almost took a live line on, I believe, but I think they rejected our odds. Is that correct, TB?
Yeah. So ultimately, I think we ended up down between 1 to 2 units. But going into those best bets, we were down about 5 units because Michelle Watterson split decision loss, Cynthia Calvillo split decision loss. There were a few different plays in there where, although we might have been generally correct in the direction, it just didn't end up hitting this week. But hey, all time, I mean, we are as close as it gets to 50-50, and that's kind of it. Like, you don't want to lose your money. You want to make sure you got your bankroll still going into next week. And like Clint said, I mean, listen, we had a solid first year, a little down, in the year 2, and year 3 has been even. Year 3 though has been a little bit. We started up 26 units, back down around towards even, but I think the biggest thing is that we generally have a read of how each fighter can win the fight. So I think that's the best part is I can't wait to get to breaking these down. So, whew.
And this is going to be an interesting card for a lot of that because there's a lot of different ways I feel like these fights can go. So let's go ahead and get straight on into it. Everybody hanging out with us, thank you again for being here for the show. Hit the like button if you haven't already. This is Pub Sports Radio. And shout out to Big Show who won the Pick'em contest here on Pub Sports Radio. You guys got to beat the Pub Sports Radio personalities if you want that free $100 in that Pick'em contest. So shout out Big Show. The lines are presented to you by Superbook Sports, of course. And I've got some bad news for you all. I really do. Your boy just didn't have time. My ass was exhausted after Easter, chasing my daughter around, doing Easter egg hunting and all that kind of stuff. So we are going old school. And for God knows what reason, Tapology is actually down today. So we're rocking with SureDog.com for our fighter profiles. And there are no less sexy graphics. I apologize. I need a nap. Your first fight of the night is Joselyne Edwards, who's 12-4. She is taking on returning UFC fighter Lucie Pudilova, who came back very impressively in her last fight. Round 2, ground and pound TKO, I believe. Actually, it might have been round 1 now that I think of it. But it was round 2. We're good. Man, what a bum fight to go ahead and get us started here in this one. Joselyne Edwards is 27 years old, got right by winning a split decision via Kim last fight. I lost on that one. I really thought Kim was going to be able to get in there and do the damn thing. Edwards will have a 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot. 63% takedown defense rating, which is, in my opinion, just a little suspect because she had like a 40-something% takedown defense rating before defending 5 takedowns from Ramona Pasquale, who we know has since been relegated to bum and cut from the UFC. and that really boosted her numbers. So I think that takedown defense rating is a little bit of a lie. The numbers lie, boys. She does tend to throw in 4 and 5 punch combinations, very high volume striker, which is always good to see. No issues getting up and over 100 significant strikes in a fight. However, she's a bit pillow fisty. She doesn't hurt anybody. She's not stopping anybody. She's lumbering. She's slow. She likes her push kick from the outside. She really tries to keep the fight, at kicking distance and range. Lucie Pudilova, on the other hand, her second run here in the UFC, she got thrown in there with Wu Yanan, who the UFC and everybody else really was ready to sell on the last time out. And she did get that impressive TKO victory. Showed very improved boxing. She's got a long, stiff jab. She knows how to use that length and that reach, but she's going to be at that disadvantage we mentioned for this one. So curious to see how that pans out. She did mix in that grappling well against Wu. She went 2 of 3 on those takedowns, but she really relied on the trip. Like, she couldn't get the takedown by itself. She had to scoop the leg and drag her to the mat. This is a spot where, guys, I've got a hard time laying chalk on either of these women. You've got Lucie Pudilova, who is the minus 140 favorite, I believe, at this stage. And I've said it on here more times than I care to count, really. The best recency bias you will ever receive in MMA betting is women's MMA. Everybody's just all about one chick. She has one good performance, and people are ready to hammer her, crown her the next title contender. That's because of how soft the women's weight classes are at this point. We're still growing. We're still improving. These young women's MMA prospects are going to get there, but they're still just not quite there yet. So Lucie Pudilova is the minus 135 favorite. Joselyne Edwards is plus 115. I'm not writing home or rushing to the window to back either of these personally, but I think it's dog or pass. I think the volume of Edwards is going to be the difference maker on this one, because I'm not convinced Lucie Pudilova is suddenly this incredible wrestler. However, I'm also not ready to stake my flag on Joselyne Edwards in this spot when she's going to be at a power disadvantage. And we saw in the last couple of fights, the judges are really favoring the power striking over the volume these days. There are a couple decisions that swung maybe surprising directions the last couple of events just because of the harder hitters. So I could see either one of these women winning the fight. Frankly, split decision's probably the best bet on the board here. What do you guys think? TB, I guess we'll lead off with you.
Yeah, so I'm weirdly I guess I'm the recency bias king here for this one, but I feel like Lucie, at least in her return from the layoff here, showed, hey, you know what, working with a bit of a different game plan, willing to, hey, you know what, the grappling is there against this opponent. I think that's the same case in this fight coming up. And I mean, not even just paying attention to Joselyne Edwards, most recent fights, because I mean, Ji-yeon Kim, she's not a wrestler, and Ramona Pasquale, she's not a UFC fighter. But Jessica Rose Clark, 5 of 11. Carol Osa, 4 of 6. Wu Yanan went 1 of 2 for nearly 5 minutes of control in their matchup. And Edwards is content to just kind of play from her back and look for submissions there. So the reason I felt comfortable enough taking a minus 140 was that I felt like even if this fight is a distance striking battle for the entire time, I don't even think that Edwards really lands with any significant damage. It's just she's able to throw enough pace to where her opponents are generally just like, all right, I'm thrown off. I can't keep up. But Lucie, at least she seems intelligent enough. It seems like she's willing to throw enough empty volume to kind of counter herself. I mean, she threw over 300 strikes against Irene Aldana. That doesn't mean she looked good doing it, but she's gonna try, right?
Yeah.
And against Lena, she throws 168. So there's multiple times against Sarah Morash, she gets 5 minutes of control. Against Ji-yeon Kim, she gets 5 minutes of control. So there's a consistency even from before she came back to that I could trust her at least looking for control time to get her to a victory. So it's not a best bet, but listen, I got to have a little something on this first fight. So at least to win a unit, 1.4.
On this call, when they finally returned to Kansas City, I don't even remember the last time they were there. You return to Kansas City, you can't not have a bet on the first fight. So I don't, and this is one of my favorite phrases, I don't hate anyone really trying to take a dog shot on if you're getting decent odds on somebody that is supposedly supposed to have a 3-inch reach advantage and be the quote unquote better athlete. Problem is we've seen that she doesn't necessarily do, as TB said, she doesn't really do much damage. She's not doing much with all those athletic gifts. She's using push kicks and she's keeping her opponents at range. Sure, and that may work somewhat to win a split decision against Jian Kim, who is a pure boxer, but it's not necessarily going to work against somebody like Lucie Pudilova, at least in my opinion, who is, as you've seen, kind of willing to zombie, kind of continue to walk forward. She's not good when she's the nail, Lucie, right? If you want to take Lucie down, that's a problem. If you want to put a pace on Lucie and really keep her, do damage to her, that's a problem. But I'm not sure that the push kicks are going to be enough to stop what's coming. And you really saw that in the Wu Yanan fight for Lucie Pudilova. She was just kind of relentless. And she even got the finish. Like, let alone her dominating, who expected a finish? So to your point, Clint, like that's the recipe for recency bias disaster. So would you be surprised? No, you've watched two, and I wouldn't say two cards in a row, but Juliana Miller and Jacqueline Analmaro. I forgot to pronounce her last name, but exactly two chalky girls to open up cards in a row that dropped the ball. So I wouldn't exactly be surprised, but second stint around for Lucie Pudilova, I think she pulls it out.
Okay. All right. So both the boys liking Lucie. I'm a little dogger pass here in this spot. I'm calling it right now, though, boys. If you bet this one, you're going to have Uncle Wheezy and DFS knocking on your door. The orderlies will be called because this one's probably not one we need to be risking our money on, to be completely honest. I'll be curious to see what the split prop looks like, because with the way women's MMA has gone recently, the split, it's going to be down to like plus 250 instead of the plus 400 they usually give us, because it just happens so often. I think Lucie is going to land harder. I think she has the better shot at mixing in the takedowns, but I also think that the volume of Edwards is going to be the issue for her, and she could just 3-1 her on numbers, and they might not be able to deny her the decision, because I'm not sure Lucie can catch her. I think Edwards just kind of backpedaling and moving around the outside of the cage. The other thing, Lucie is really, really heavy on that lead leg. If Edwards decides to kick legs in this fight, she's going to bust Lucie up with that. And that could be a real problem for her, because Lucie did look good when she dropped back to the regional scene, but she fought cans. She didn't fight anybody who's any good at all. And Edwards is not any good either. But if she decides to kick the lead leg, we might get a leg kick TKO. I mean, like, Lucie could be rendered useless within 10 minutes if she decides to attack that lead leg. It's that simple. So we'll, we probably have spent too much time on this one, guys. It's 18 minutes into the show and we're still talking about women's MMA. So let's take a deep breath and we'll just move on from this one. All right. Next up, though, we do have Aaron Phillips, who is coming back after a long layoff, being welcomed by Gaston. I mean, this guy comes from Bellator, and I honestly forgot about him, had no idea who he was. And the only thing I started doing was singing Gaston's song from Beauty and the Beast, because I do have a 7-year-old daughter. I've watched that movie more times than I care to admit on camera. Gaston 6-3, making his UFC debut here. Reckless, relentless striking. That came out as relentless. My tongue is having a hard time today, boys. Relentless and reckless. Big, heavy punches. He throws himself into the fire. He's willing to take your best shot to land his spinning elbows every single fight. When you go back and run the tape on this guy, he's got 2 losses by sub, and all 6 wins that he has are by knockout. He is a kill or be killed fighter. It is extremely rare, I feel like, that the UFC actually snatches a Bellator fighter. So it's kind of impressive that he's the one that got the call at 6-3, no less. Like, almost feel like maybe you throw him in the Tough House or on the Contender Series or something like that. But no, they're sticking him straight on into the big show here. Aaron Phillips, 12-4, 0-3 in the UFC, hasn't fought since 2020. He's got 4 canceled fights in a row. And when I did my stalking, you look at this guy's Instagram profile and he's got no training going. Like, he's coaching, he's reffing. He has not got a single image of him up there working on his boxing or lifting weights or anything. I don't even know if Aaron Phillips' heart is in the game at this point anymore. I'm kind of surprised he even has a fight here after that kind of a layoff. You'd think they would just kind of cut him and send him off down the river. I'm struggling here with this one because honestly, I think Gaston is kind of bad. Like he's very physical, he's strong, he's explosive, but you see people able to like get under his hips and take him down and just drag on him on the ground. I still think he needs to work on his get up game and his wrestling and his takedown defense. But Aaron Phillips has looked awful in the UFC so far. And even though he's got like that rangy, explosive knees and elbows, good style, good strong underhooks, underrated grappling because we haven't had much of a chance to see it. He's usually the one that wants to strike. Like they're kind of setting up a banger here in this spot, but I think it's also pretty apparent that they want Gaston to be the guy that gets his hand raised. But I don't know what Aaron Phillips we're getting. I mean, what does he look like when a guy doesn't try to take him down? When he gets another guy who wants to throw spinning elbows? This is going to be a freaking car crash, guys. Minus 195 on Gaston right now. Aaron Phillips is a plus 165 dog. And again, just because I don't trust either of these guys, I mean, I would almost lean dog or pass, but I'm not putting any money on Phillips when we haven't seen him for 3 freaking years, and he might be ready to go be a judge or a coach or a ref rather than being a mixed martial arts fighter. So this is a complete pass for me. But I would not be shocked at all if Phillips suddenly turns into a wrestler and goes ahead and does whatever it takes to get that UFC win under his belt and keep his job. Guru, let's start with you. What do you make of this fight?
It's very interesting that Aaron Phillips is, like you said, making somehow a return here. A guy that had already had a decent, significant layoff, right? Like he just started his career at just an interesting point there, and within the UFC, and comes in here versus, I mean, a guy in Gaston, like you said, that I mean, it's you said all the good things about him, that he's explosive, right? And he's got some, good footwork and decent striker. But I mean, man, he got caught in one of those submission by Carey. That was one of the worst guillotines I've ever seen in my life. Very embarrassing. And then he comes back great. He avenges the win by a knockout. Well, you know what had happened in the interim? The dude had been knocked out twice in a row. Make that 3 times. Makes it way less impressive. So like you said, I think it's very interesting to see what happens to Aaron Phillips here with a guy that is not going to wrestle him. The only guy that we know, so to speak, would be Jack Shore. Obviously you can watch the Fight Pass tape of the guys that he fought, but they're wrestlers. So it's interesting to think what is going to happen here. So you do wonder, right? He's Head Kicks MMA on Instagram. The gym is Head Kicks, no? So is he the owner of the gym?
He is the owner. That is his gym.
Right. So I think he's got his master's in business administration, obviously running a gym. Doesn't necessarily need the money, similar to a guy like Trey Ogden, right? Runs his own gym, Marathon MMA. Yeah. I'd like you said,
necessarily the worst thing in the world to be a gym owner as an MMA fighter, I wouldn't think. But in this case, I think we can kind of see where the priority lies.
Right. That's it. Like, it's just, where is your priority? Like, is it in winning this fight? And I mean, Trey Ogden kind of showed you his priority is just not to die, like get knocked out. Like, he didn't have a game plan to win the fight. He just made sure not to lose it too badly. So
I'll never forgive him for not cashing my Bahamondes inside the distance ticket because he just refused to engage whatsoever. He was willing to take the L. That pissed me off.
Yeah. And I think you could see something similar here, but at the same time, there's nothing in Gaston that makes me feel confident in him at a minus 200. Like, why are you lining him that? Like, what is it? And I don't think it's, just like they see something in this Bellator prospect and they're like, we got to give him the best shot we can give him. Like, I just think they're filling content. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, just bet this fight probably not to go the distance would be my thought here, given the expected chaos. And Phillips, he's probably using this fight as like his last hurrah to, hey, like, check out me. I'm the UFC fighter that owns the gym, you know, and they'll post it all over his Instagram, which is the name of his gym, get a few more participants over at that location. But at the end of the day, head kicks MMA. Maybe the best way to get more people in your gym is with a little head kick knockout. But
oh my god,
I'm not willing
it's a
to
win.
I'm not.
You get a lot
to,
more signups with a win.
Yeah.
Listen, he's obviously finishing out his contract. He's had 3 UFC fights, right? So
Yeah.
he's finishing him out, unless he re-signed.
Listen,
He
I mean,
re-signed?
he stuffed 5 out of 8 takedowns against Jack Shore. Like for like a couple moments there, you're like, all right, like he worked on it. You know, he had the wherewithal to want to be there until he ended up getting choked out. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, he also you know, his loss, he has a TKO loss, but that was the injury.
To Chris El Guapo Gutierrez. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think Gaston needs a knockout, and this guy's never really been knocked out like that. So, dog or pass.
Yeah, and honestly, you should probably pass. But once again, if you're sitting there, you know, you won your first degenerate bet on the first fight. Maybe you want to carry that over to this fight and take the dog on this one after you took Lucie Pudilova and somehow made money on her. Hey man, there's oh no, they're coming for me, and that's the last you ever saw of TV. So I think we're good on that one.
I don't mind it, boys. I don't mind it. I'm going to be curious. I think the way to play this one actually might be a total. Because of the way Phillips fights, I know it's contrary to the way Gaston is going to fight, but, you know, UFC jitters, first fight under the bright lights, getting the big call up, you know, finally a guy who will strike with you. We might get a little dancing. We might get a little play around the cage. We might get a little level changing in wrestling. Like, I'm going to be curious what they set this at, because I bet it's a 1.5. And if they give me an over 1.5 at like a plussed up, nice, juicy number, I'd be very curious at an over 1.5. Like you said, I'm not entirely sure it goes the distance, but if we're talking 7.5 minutes, I think we might be able to get that.
Just might.
That sounds interesting to me.
It'll come down to the number, obviously. If it's you know, minus 145 over 1.5, I'm no interest there. But you know, if it's a pick 'em, if it's a plus 120, maybe, but probably best to pass. I think I'm going to side with the UFC. I'll say no one wins his UFC debut like Gaston, and we'll go ahead and get him his hand raised here on this one. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if Phillips spoils the party and comes back shockingly better in his last fight here, because it's been so damn long. He absolutely could have made some tweaks, improvements, adjustments, and we could see a whole new version of him this time around.
Definitely.
All right. Moving right along, everybody. We got 122 live viewers. Thank you all so much for joining us here on Pub Sports Radio. Make sure, and Justin ruins it. He's seeing over 1.5 at minus 40 right now. Okay, well, right there. There you go. Leaning over 1.5, and unless people go out there and smash that under for me, it's probably not. It's right at that line I said I don't want it. So thank you for the heads up, Justin. I appreciate it. Everybody hit the like button. This is Pub Sports Radio. I am joined by Chronic Combat Conversations, TB and Guru. Make sure you check these boys out. Give them a follow, and all the support you can give us on the video would be fantastic. We greatly appreciate it. Next up, we have got a Dana White Contender Series special. Bruna, Brasil, the special one, is taking on Denise Gomes, who came off the Ultimate Fighter not too long ago herself. Everyone's super excited, boys, about the special one. Understandable with a name like that. You know, she calls herself the special one. She's undefeated. No, she's not. She is 8-2-1. She's your classic Dana White's Contender Series overhyped prospect. Boys, I've got a bet already. I made it. I locked it in. We're using the Dana White Contender Series fade angle this week. We've got Denise Gomes at plus 180 for the first bet that I've got here on this card. And I'll tell you why. Bruna Brasil made her Dana White Contender Series fight, and everyone's just fawning over how amazing she looks. She fought somebody who should have been 2 weight classes down. It looks like David versus Goliath in the cage at Dana White's Contender Series. The girl she fought was undefeated, who smashed a couple of cans, but was like 5-0, and had no hope of ever closing the distance on her, had no hope. Oh, but wait, she still did. She still caused her to struggle in the wrestling. She still caused her to struggle in the grappling. She still had a hard time with this woman who she was massively oversized against. Now, she is light on her feet. She does have a nice digging body teep kick that I actually really enjoy. She throws a good spinning back kick from time to time, but she struggles with the takedowns. She struggled with the cage control. She struggled with the strength of a smaller opponent. Denise Gomes, 6-2. This is her second fight in the UFC. She was a victim of the Dana White's Contender Series fade. She dropped her UFC debut to none other than Loma Lookboonmee. And everyone knows how freaking good Loma is. She is Carol Hosa's partner, so she's got connections, and she trains with Jessica Andrade. And you know what, guys? She reminds me just a little bit of Jessica Andrade. She throws really hard low calf kicks. She marauds her way forward into range, and she never stops getting out of your face. She has a hard, stiff jab, a big, heavy right hand that she sits down on, and she always strikes in 2 to 4 punch combos. It's not just the one and done, but she has also been audited. She takes big shots to the chin and keeps on coming forward. Not that you want to see her doing that, but it makes me comfortable with her durability at this stage of her career, that I've seen her get cracked and be relentless coming forward anyway. The problem that she had with Loma Lookboonmee is the same problem a lot of people have had with Loma Lookboonmee. And I've been right here on this show, and I've tried to tell people before. When you're a wrestler or a mid to low level UFC fighter, and you want to dive in on somebody's hips to either pin them against the cage or drag them to the floor, the best counter, especially in women's MMA for that, is the judo throw. They can't stop it. They have no idea what they're doing. Sam Hughes had the exact same problem when she fought Loma. You wrap your arms around this girl and you've got a size and strength advantage, but all of a sudden you're on your back. You have no idea what happened. It takes them time to acclimate to the UFC level, and she jumped in feet first against someone like Loma, who had no problem bombing on her, and she bombed on her. Gomes was busted up and bloody, and it didn't matter. She punched her way back into that fight, and she had Loma in trouble in the third round. She took Loma's back. She was working on a choke. She was pounding on her. That was a hell of a fight. I think Denise Gomes' stock went up in a loss to Loma Lookboonmee personally, and I think this fight should be much, much closer to a pick'em. You have got the recency bias on Brasil. She looked great. She looked pristine. She looked shiny. And then you've got Gomes, who was bloodied up by somebody in her debut. Give me the dog, boys. Give me the dog. I think that the better gas tank of Gomes is going to work Brasil. And whether she gets a decision by winning rounds 2 and 3, or she busts her ass up and gets her out of there in the second or the third round, I think Gomes is the right side here in this spot. TB, back at you, buddy. What do you like here?
Oh my God, Clint, all over it, baby. Same thing. Let's go. It's Denise Gomes time. I'm a huge Loma fan. I'm a huge Andrade fan. You can't sell me any faster by bringing up those names in the argument. And also, I mean, it just matches up on the tape, you know? I mean, Bruna, I think she's a bit slicker and smoother than like a Gabriella that just, Gabby, you know, that Fernandez that just lost her debut to Jasmine. But Denise has the explosion, and she's shown either knockout, decision. She has 3 submission attempts in her 1 UFC fight. I mean, I think she's liable to make it happen any which way the fight goes. And Loma really didn't look too comfortable in a lot of spots in that fight. It was something that the commentary kept on saying how confused and like whatever she looked in. Yeah, I mean, Denise is just dangerous. You got to be very careful. So I think Bruna, both of her losses by finish. It could come by sub this time, but listen, don't get too cute. Just play the money line. Follow Clinty.
Yep. Dog or pass, absolutely. Just you gotta be careful because you watched Bruna struggle with the Muay Thai of Loma Lookboonmee, and that is obviously what Bruna Brasil's background is: kickboxing and Muay Thai. So, in terms of the grappling situations and the clinch, she can absolutely struggle. But one thing and Clint hit on it already. What you have seen from Denise Gomes is heart and chin. She and honestly, you could maybe even call it cardio. At the same time, I don't know if anybody watched her one fight on Invicta versus Milana Dudeva. Girl had just come back from her pregnancy, knocked her down three times in round 2. And honestly, after that, she was just so tired and just upset that she didn't get the win. That Gomes had came back and hit her with some body shots and just teed off on her against the cage. So the longer this fight goes, the more I like the dog here.
Okay. I like it. I like that you guys are backing up the read here just a little bit. Let's see where that number has stretched to at this point. I got plus 180 on Gomes. She looks to be down to plus 170 at this point. So, always nice to beat a little line move. We'll see what happens. Beware laying 2-1 on these Dana White Contender Series UFC debutantes. We've talked about it a lot, folks, especially when it's women's MMA. All right. Let's move right along here. Next fight up, groovy Lando Vannata makes his UFC return. 31 years old, 12-6, taking on Daniel Zellhuber, who is just 23 years old. We all talked a lot about Zellhuber collectively, between all the breakdown shows last week, because Trey Ogden was a big, big topic of discussion. And this kid is getting the royal treatment from the UFC. Right now, Mexico is a big market for the UFC, and they're really pushing fighters from that region, obviously, and again, for obvious reasons. But he did not live up to the hype whatsoever in that fight. Ogden really shut him down. And I talked last week about it. It actually made me a little nervous to bet Bahamondes, because I was like, man, I think that it was just that Zellhuber had a bright lights moment and shit the bed, but I also could see it being like I'm massively underrating Ogden. No. They put him in there with Bahamondes, and that's exactly how the first fight should have gone. That's exactly what they expected Zellhuber to do to this guy. He just choked, which happens to young fighters. He was 22 making his UFC debut, and they rolled the red carpet out for him. So can't blame the kid for being nervous. He's now taken a year off since then. And you know what? He's working with some damn good fighters. He's training at Extreme Couture, which, by the way, boys, I've always been a fan of Extreme Couture, but they are climbing the ranks, in my opinion, of gyms right now. Everybody at Extreme Couture is doing so well and just getting better and better and showing improvements, and they're stable of fighters. You remember what Jackson Wink used to be way back in the day, the height of John Jones, where it was just all these massive names. That's what Extreme Couture is really turning into here for me. I love this kid working at that camp, especially with the way you've got guys like Strickland and Curtis who want to strike and know how to stop every single takedown you attempt to keep the fight where they want it to be. That's perfect for this kid. 12-1, 23 years old, loves his outside kicks. He is fast, great footwork, good head movement, and good finishing instinct too. When he gets on top of people, the ground and pound is nasty. The elbows are solid, but this is still also maybe almost like a step up in competition for him. I don't know if we can call it that. Lando Vannata is like your definition of a 500 UFC fighter. He's 31 years old, fought some decent guys, but he's really alternating wins and losses at this point. Got submitted a year ago by Charles Jourdain. 145 seemed to be a failed experiment. He's one of these guys that cut down, looked like maybe he'd have a size and strength advantage down there, but his cardio really edged off and he didn't have enough of a pump there. So he's moving back up to 155. And you guys know how I feel. When you get these aging veteran fighters who are jumping weight classes up and down, trying to find that one little advantage in a fight, the skills aren't there. They're looking for a way to bully people with their muscle and size. That's the beginning of the end for me. I'm like, you're chasing something that isn't there, rather than, the skills simply aren't there for you to win your fights. So you're trying to find an edge elsewhere. I think this is a good test for Zellhuber. I think they've put him in a very good position here to win. And you look at some issues that somebody like Vannata has had. I mean, obviously the last fight was a perfect example of it. When he gets finished, it's by sub. If he gets hurt, if he gets tired, he shoots sloppy takedowns and he leaves his neck out there. And so Hoover's actually got an underrated ground game, guys. For a striker, he's got a 6-inch reach advantage, but he's got 2 wins on that roster there by submission. We've never had Lando Vannata knocked out before. I think we might get a sneaky little guillotine here this week, guys. So I'm going to be looking very, very closely at the numbers when they drop those props here on this spot, but I'm definitely going to lean Zellhuber. He's a minus 120 favorite. You can get plus 100 even money on Lando Vannata. I'm a little nervous in this spot. I haven't bet it yet because I'm not sure I want to trust this 23-year-old who's getting, I guess maybe a lateral step in competition. It's not really up or down, but the UFC is pushing this kid. I think they're putting him in a position to succeed. I would ride with Zellhuber if you were going to bet this fight personally. Guru, I think you're up. What do you think?
You know, if at first you don't succeed, it won't hurt. Smoke a little, come on. All right,
Dust yourself off and try again.
Hey, I'm going to get copyright strike. That's way too close to what the actual song sounds like.
That's funny. I think you're right. I think they're giving Daniel Zellhuber all the chances to win this fight. And you've seen the betting market kind of adjust. Oh, I mean, possibly even over adjust, right? And I was confused. And
I thought he'd be minus 250.
Right. Again, like you'd think he'd still be the sizable favorite. But at the same time, I'm not sure what it is with the betting makers. I didn't understand why he was picking versus Andre Fili. Like, Andre Fili's such a dangerous finisher. It didn't make any sense to me. I think Andre Fili was almost a dog, actually. I think I got him plus money or close to it. And he cashed that ticket fairly early with that submission, which was a guillotine, which was nice. So Clint got me interested in what he was saying in terms of a Daniel Zellhuber submission. Otherwise, I was thinking, and it's kind of where the bookmakers are thinking now that I see a lineup here on draft, not that book, a certain book, minus 195 for an over 2.5. I kind of was thinking it would go decision, but yeah, maybe Zellhuber comes out with a different sort of fire, but at the same time, he didn't finish. Again, a good fighter, though, in Lucas Almeida on Dana White Contender Series, lost the first round, was still the same low output guy he was versus Trey Ogden. Like after seeing the Trey Ogden performance, it kind of wasn't that surprising to see him be so low output. And the one thing that's been Lando Vannata's like heel, right, is somebody that wants to really control him on the ground, right? And take him down. 68% takedown defense with 13% opponent control rate. I don't think that's where Daniel Zellhuber wants to go. Sure, he might be able to pull something if given the opportunity, but I think he's a striker. He wants to stand. So, yeah, you kind of have to lean with the younger, more athletic, longer guy, but maybe some veteran experience pulls it out. I'm not sure that I'm sold that he's actually a stud, that he's actually, what's his nickname, like the Golden Eagle or something. Like, he's not, I don't know, Golden Boy. I don't know that
I think he's
golden
just a
anything.
golden boy.
He might be the golden toilet. Like, I don't know what he's got going for him.
Well, man, Mushroom asked what happened to our nicknames, and there you go. Guru's getting us started.
Golden toilet. That's fine.
It's a strong start. It really is.
Yeah. Or is it, instead of Groovy, is it Lando Poopies Vannata?
No, don't fuck with that.
Right.
Groovy's the best.
We got a theme going.
So, all right, but no, I mean, listen, so Vannata, I was actually just kind of looking at my color-coded win-loss thing here. He's never had the same result in a fight in his 12 UFC fights. He's never had back-to-back the same result. He's due for a win or a draw here. Like, what is the draw prop?
That's actually hysterical.
Yeah, he's got 2 draws, one against Bobby, one against Matt Steamroller Frivola.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and he's also liable for a point deduction or something stupid at any point in the fight, throwing crazy spinning shit. Zellhuber's going to be throwing crazy spinning shit. Zellhuber, listen, I mean, a 22, 23-year-old making his debut in the UFC, sometimes on occasion you can like take that and like toss it in the garbage. So are we taking Daniel Zellhuber and throwing him in the garbage, or are we just throwing that memory of the performance in the garbage?
No, because
I'll take Zellhuber this fight.
I don't know. I just think that his tentative nature is, or just his ability to like not really engage aggressively. So, dude, I'm looking at the stats. He somehow attempted 178 strikes in that fight. How did that happen?
Well, because they were like Macy Barber strikes.
Exactly. What does it matter? Exactly. That's okay, I can't do it.
Vannata dropped down to 145. He's moving back up to 155.
Where he belongs.
Yeah,
He
but
looked
at the
terrible. He
same
looked
time,
like a skeleton.
where he belongs is also where he's going to have a 4-inch reach deficit and a 4-inch height deficit and a 6-inch reach deficit. And
Yeah,
he's
it's a
7 years
problem.
older, and he's been in 12 UFC fights already. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Right now, I mean, he's what is he fighting out of BMF Ranch still?
I don't know. Who actually
so-
trains there? Who could you actually train there when when Cowboy's like, yeah, I actively am doing steroids right now because I'm in movies. Like, do you really want to train there?
That can't be a good look when USADA comes to call, right? They're like, "That's your coach." Like,
Yeah. So yeah,
those are his steroids. They're not my steroids.
totally on steroids. But we separate the supplements. Mine are over here, and his are over here.
I like Daniel Zellhuber, but I don't know that I'm sinking like big money because I could feel like last week everybody was sinking big money into Ignacio Bahamondes finish. I don't know that I want to sink big money into a finish.
the lines are totally different though. This fight's like nearly a pick'em, so I got to go Zellhuber.
I'm with you there on the side, and I don't think you. That's the thing. Like, we don't need inside the distance. It's minus 120. Like, if you want to pick a side here, minus 120 is perfectly playable. I don't need to bet inside the distance.
All right.
If I get a big sexy plus on a submission prop, then I'll bet inside the distance. But
a big sexy.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's Zellhuber. And you know what? Honestly, guys, we talked about recency bias in women's MMA. Let's talk about recency bias in the fandom, right? How fickle are people who watch this damn sport? We saw Raul Rosas Jr. go down in flames this weekend. Think they're going to want to run it back with another 23-year-old kid? No, he's too young. There's no way. He's not good enough. We just saw this. He might be the play this week.
He might just be. That's you're right. I did kind of start off that breakdown with that by saying like maybe the line has overcorrected. So
it potentially has in this spot, and I really need to make a Fade the Public t-shirt at this point.
Yes,
it's just it's a.
But if you walk around with that in public, people might be like, "What you?"
Well, but it you got to put the logo on it, and then someone asks you a question.
There you go.
So it leads.
Yes,
it leads into advertising for the show.
Hashtag Fade the Public.
There you go. There you go. What's up, Leon? Thanks for getting in the chat here, my guy. Hope everybody is doing well, rocking with us this evening. All right. Your next fight up that we want to talk about is none other than Piera La Fiera. Oh, I shouldn't have tried that. La Fiera. All right, got it. Rodriguez, and she is taking on. Oh, no. Oh, that's my bad. I'm so sorry. She is taking on Gillian Robertson, the Savage. My girl makes her return to the UFC, and she is dropping down a weight class, boys. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I am so happy.
Why? Yeah.
I'm so happy. Look, I've been saying it. I've been saying it for years. The problem with my girl, the Savage, is that she loses when she gets out-muscled. All right? She's a grappling specialist. We all know this. She was all about the throat cuddles. She'll take you down. She'll rough you up a little bit. I've actually been waiting for the ground and pound TKO via elbows because she's looked for it a couple of times. But when she can't out-muscle her opponent, that's it. It's game over. She has no plan B. She has not gotten herself to a point with her striking where she's capable of winning 15 minutes on the feet. That's just facts. So because of that, her being slightly undersized up at 125, and I say slightly because she wasn't outmatched. She's taken on some really tough customers, some very physically strong women like Priscilla Cachoeira, and she has done well enough against them. Dropping down to 115, she will have that size advantage. She will have that strength advantage. And I think it'll make all the difference because the women that she couldn't get down at 125, she should be able to get down at 115. This is a spot where I am a little late to the party. She opened up the underdog. You guys know me. I spend my whole week breaking down these fights in and out for you, and then I play with my daughter as much as I can before we start the whole process over again. So by the time I figured out I wanted to actually bet on Gillian, she was minus 115. Bad line. I know. But what I can tell you, we're not doing a sharp action report this week because I only sync up with my guy Andrew on Fridays of pay-per-view events. But the number one gambler at Superbook Sports is in on Gillian Robertson. I will tell you guys that. Now, he did bet on Gerald Meerschaert last week, but that was like the sharp square divide type spot. It happens. This guy hits at a ridiculously high rate in this spot. The only thing I'll tell you guys is I am just a little terrified at the amount of support that I'm getting from the betting public, because you guys know I like to fade the public. I want to be on an island, so I'm a little terrified that so many people love my bet here on Gillian Robertson. But I really think she should be able to outmuscle Rodriguez at this new weight class. Rodriguez is 2-0 in the UFC. She fought Kay Hansen, who is undersized at 115 and couldn't handle the wrestling in those situations. Same exact setup. She's just smaller. And then Sam Hughes, who at the time had not worked on her wrestling yet and was very susceptible to being taken down. But the issue with Rodriguez is the gas tank. She puts everything into everything, and then she slows down. The deeper the fight drags, she starts to slow. And I think even if early in the fight Gillian can't get her down, as long as she keeps being herself and relentlessly hunting that takedown, she will find them deeper in the fight. And I think against fighters like Sam and Kay, where that wasn't an issue, it will be an issue against Gillian Robertson the deeper this fight goes. And the last point I want to make before I kick it to you guys is there was a bit of quit in Gillian when she was younger. It reminds me a little of Charles Oliveira, and now people don't lose your minds. I'm not saying she belongs in the same category as Charles Oliveira. I can hear the keyboards already tapping away. But in his career early on, he had that quit in him. If you put him in a bad spot, he would just fold. And Gillian got knocked out a couple times. Macy Barber comes to mind back in 2019, where she just didn't have that plan B and couldn't follow up on anything when she got hurt. She doesn't do that anymore. Now she's been in there with the likes of, again, Priscilla Cachoeira, who tried to gouge her eyes out. Didn't matter. She was in there against Mayra Agapova, who was very dangerous early in that fight. Didn't matter. She went with Miranda Maverick, who's a monster. And Talia Santos, who's a monster physically. And even though she was on the opposite end of some beatings, she never quit. She just kept moving forward. And I think that's what it's going to take here in this spot. I think eventually Rodriguez will slow. I think Gillian will eventually get her hands on her. We'll end up on the ground, and then it's all Gillian's world from there. My one fear is the weight class switch. As long as Gillian can make the drop healthy, she'll be great. If she struggles, which we've seen before, if the weight cut is a problem and her body isn't built for that class, she might get nuked in round one. So that's a risk we need to assess here, folks. We need to acknowledge that it's on the table that Gillian might be traumatized by dropping those extra 10 pounds, and it could be a problem on Saturday, but I think it's okay. I think she'll be all right. I think she's small enough to make the class, but big enough to have an advantage. We will find out. And of course, my guy MMA Locker Room jumps in at that point. here to complain that I compared Gillian to Dubronx. Yeah, Locker Room, get out of here. All right, TV, I believe it's your turn, my friend. What do you think? Am I overreaching here with my girl Gillian, or what are we doing?
No, there's a clear path to victory, and the fact of the matter is that Kay Hansen did even land a couple takedowns and get nearly like 3.5, 4 minutes of control in a fight where she did overall struggle and end up not looking so hot. Piera never really uses her takedowns for any real control or anything like that. It's really just to kind of counter whatever someone's bringing at her. So Gillian coming in, if she's looking like the bigger fighter, we could really be onto something here. I just actually tend to lean to taking the over, or the fight goes the distance in this spot. I feel like that there's going to be a bigger push towards an under here. And I think Piera won as an undefeated fighter, which I can't ever bring myself to bet on an undefeated fighter getting finished again. Jacqueline Amarine, even her, even the fighter that couldn't even stand up, she's finding a way to pull guard and stay safe in these moments where if Hughes lands a 4-punch combo, it's over. So similarly, I trust Piera's grappling, at least defensively. Even if she doesn't win the fight per se, I trust her to at least see it to the finish line. I think Gillian can totally win this fight with just control. even just working the ground and pound, and Piera's so close to getting her out of there. Oh, the choke's almost in, but she fights the hands and she gets out of it. Like, I tend to think that's the way this fight goes. So I think my pick, it's tough because I see it 50-50. Piera, I think she is very talented and athletic, but it's just I don't trust her in that third round after she's already stuffed a few takedowns, and Gillian's still trying to come after her. But I mean, Gillian against JJ Aldrich, that was really the nail in the coffin of, oh my God, she needs to move down weight. So I'm willing to, if I had jumped on it at plus money, I'd be much more interested. Right now, I'm really just looking at what the over is.
JJ's wrestling defense, though, is impeccable. And I think that's really the big deciding factor. Not only is she a bigger woman, she's filled out physically, and her takedown defense is incredibly solid. Those are kind of the two pieces we're missing here. Like, she's getting a smaller fighter with worse takedown defense. That's what's tipping me. And I'm not trying to, argue back on your point or debate. If you like the other side, you go for it. I love it. But got to ride with my redheaded lady here.
Yeah, not even sure I'm like playing this side, and I might not even take Piera, but I think it's very much dependent on what they look like next to each other on face-offs. Like, if Gillian's going down a weight class and it's really just like she was meant to be in this weight class, and Piera is like pretty solidly, thick at least. Like, they're this close to the same height. It's not like it's going to be some like Daniel Zellhuber type of height difference. It's a couple inches and the reach, but yeah, I mean, if Gillian's that much thicker, like, you really got to take into consideration what's going to happen. I mean, could just be standing cage control. But Guru, I've been going, man. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I'm not sure, as Clint had quickly, I believe, fast forwarded through some pictures of some sort. I'm not exactly sure where she's pulling.
That was a complete accident.
I don't know where that was. I don't.
Glad I closed the feet pics tab before we got on the show here.
The feet finder. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know where exactly she's cutting the 10 pounds from. I know she's young enough to be doing it. Maybe she, like you guys are saying, should have been doing it all along. So I'm certainly interested to see that. She, unfortunately, to me, at least based on what I'm seeing, doesn't have the size. I mean, she's 2 inches taller, but will have the same reach. I am concerned that the same problems for her will kind of exist in terms of shooting takedowns from kind of far out, and not being able to be as aggressive as she wants to be, or as successful as her aggression tends to kind of lead her to want to be, if that makes any sense. Piera's biggest problem, as you guys have already alluded to as well, is her cardio, right? We're concerned about with her cardio and her at times low output, but she's got power. She's got nice counters. She is comfortable mixing in the grappling. So if Gillian's comfortable playing bottom or had a tough weight cut, and again is comfortable playing bottom, searching for subs, maybe again, like TB was kind of saying as well, that this undefeated prospect doesn't maybe get finished in this spot here. So if we can get somehow some sort of plus money on an over on a fight goes the distance, I would take it. But certainly at basically similar to pick'em odds on somebody with more experience, as long as Gillian has a safe cut, I mean, you kind of like it. But at the same time, do you really feel comfortable betting Gillian Robertson if she's not winning by submission? Like, if that fight goes to the decision, you really feel good that the judges are giving it to her. So maybe you just play Gillian by sub, but yeah, you can't listen. That's the other thing too. I see Clint scour. Listen, there's a lot of simps on that. This happens. She's there's a lot of people that get very invested in these women's MMA fights for all sorts of reasons that have nothing to do with their skill set. So.
Hey, it's like when I bet my Coyotes or my Vikings, man. I try to be as unbiased as possible. And when it's one of my people, whether it's man or woman, one of my fighters that I'm a fan of, I make doubly sure. There's a reason I live bet Sam Hughes after round 1 last week. I didn't bet her pre-flop. I needed to see she could defend the choke first. Like, as soon as I saw that, we're full sail ahead on Sam Hughes. You know what I mean? But that's where
grabbing inside the gloves there.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's what my grandpa always said. All right, boys. Let's leave this one behind here. We'll go ahead and agree to disagree, but it's a pick 'em price tag. You know, that's what happens, right? Like, especially with these close competitive fights, people think that it's like only one-way traffic, but the line's minus 115 for a reason. Like the other girl is.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm playing a little devil's advocate. I'm not fully sold. I want to see a
No, I
little
love it.
weigh-ins and face-offs, but no, I think it would just be a disservice to my personality as a human being to just come on your show and just be like, yeah, dude, that's the best bet you ever had. That's the one. I gotta throw a wrench in there. That's just me.
First off, I love it. Second, Guru, I want to take the opportunity to just tell a little story for you guys because you guys know how it is. You put your opinions out there on the web, you know, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, whatever. People have their opinions of you. And there's a lot of people out there that don't like me. Maybe it's my face. I'm not sure. But I got a comment the other day. And somebody was like, you know, you're really good at gloating, but you're really bad at taking criticism. I'm like, no, like, actually, I'm really good at taking constructive criticism. It's something I pride myself on. What a lot of people don't know, I was actually an artist before I ever started any of these shenanigans. So, like, there's a difference. There's a distinct difference between constructive criticism, something that you can actually listen to and apply differently to improve, which I think everybody needs to be open to, and being a dick. If you're a fucking asshole and you're not doing anything but like slandering people, that's not criticism, people. Like we need people to understand what the definition of criticism is. If you're saying, you know, Clint, I don't like how loud you are when you get excited on things, it hurts my ears. That's criticism. And that is criticism that I can listen to. And that's criticism that I go, you know what? I'll be excited, but I'll tone it down just a little bit. My wife and neighbors would probably like that too. I can work with that. Being like, Clint, you fucking suck, man. I hate that you always bet the redheads. It's like, no, that's not criticism. Like, what? Forgive me, I love Spike Carlisle.
Yeah, and you saw it on Twitter too. I had posted a picture of me in a jean jacket, and the dude spazzed out. He said, both look dreadful, immediately deleted his tweet and blocked me. Like, what? Like, that's not criticism. That's being a jerk. Like, what is that?
I have never in my life.
And let's be real. They don't look dreadful, by the way. Like, come on. Like, they don't look dreadful. So you're just lying to yourself. Clint.
First off, they look fantastic. But I've never seen more beta male energy than blocking someone over a jean jacket. That's the most beta thing I've ever seen in my life. So this man is incredibly insecure and weak for being that upset over how good you
may know who it is.
Salty.
You may know who it is. He's active on there.
Yeah.
Let's not give him the
Who cares?
I won't.
Let's get this party rolling.
Let's keep going. We got more important things to do.
We don't got time for haters.
Fireball's a hell of a drug. You love to see it. All right, everybody. Let's keep the show rolling. We got 150 live viewers. Thank you all for hanging out with us here tonight. I'm getting my ass kicked in the NHL, by the way. So apologies if anybody tailed any of the DGen action tonight. Next up, we've got Zak Cummings, who I honestly entirely forgot about. 38 years old, moving up to 205 pounds, taking on Ed Short Fuse Herman, one of the men who actually got me into the damn sport. I love me some Short Fuse. I've been such a fan of this guy for so long, but he's 42 freaking years old and somehow still doing the damn thing. I got to tell you guys, this is an interesting fight. For a different reason, because I think the winner of this one is going to be awarded a new hip. Ed is so slow. Oh my God. You know, they always say that power is the last thing to go. And I think Ed is the perfect embodiment of that idea. He absolutely can still crack with the best of them. This guy hits super hard. His grappling has always been high level, and he is deadly in jiu-jitsu. But he doesn't have a gas tank anymore. Like, I couldn't believe he went 15 with Alonzo Menifield. I think the only reason he went 15 with Menifield is because that guy's got 4 minutes of gas himself. So he survived 1 or 2 shots. The chin still checked out for Short Fuse. and then he could kind of slow it down just a little bit, and that worked for him. He was able to be in that fight because of that. But he's going to be big here in this spot. Zak Cummings, he's 38 years old, but apparently has moved out to Factory X Muay Thai, which there's a couple of those guys here on this card tonight. That's not a bad move. I like me some Factory X. I like the way those guys strike. But he hasn't fought since he stole that victory from Alessio Di Chirico back in 2020, which, by the way, guys, one of my personal, like, underrated, awful, bad beat type of nights. I was big on Alessio Di Chirico that night, and it was a very close fight. It was very competitive, but it was also, like, close but clear. I felt like Di Chirico was very much ahead on the cards in the third round, and we're talking 2 seconds left in the fight. Cummings hits a head kick from hell and drops Di Chirico and steals the entire damn fight away because he got awarded the 29-28 for a knockdown at the end of the fight. I was so upset. Zak's been on my shit list ever since. But in this spot, I think he's very, very live because he's going to be much faster than Ed Herman is. He's decently well-rounded. He's very low volume. He's very slow. He's very plodding. He could get cracked by Ed, absolutely. But I think especially with the move to Factory X, we're going to see some leg kicks. I wouldn't be surprised if he destroys Ed's leg. And this is like one of those, Ed finally gets a fight in front of fans and he just has to like lay his gloves down in the middle of the cage and cry a little bit because he can't walk and he never got a chance to fight because Zak may take like a risk adverse type of fight here and just wreck him with how fast he is. I could see it. I really could see it. I don't want to lay minus 225 on Zak Cummings. I'm picking him to win. I hate that number, but I really do think he's probably the side here, and Ed's probably going to need a round one finish to get it. Guru, you're up, buddy.
Dude, you nailed it. It's exactly that. You have to love the fact that Zak Cummings is working at Factory X and working with very high level people over there. He just took a picture 6 days ago. I just posted on my Twitter. Standing next to a wall of killers. Should be properly prepared for this fight. Ed Herman, 42 years old, just announced that he's got his own in Vancouver, his own fight promotion, got UFC Fight Pass to be broadcasting it. He's taking a check and cash and he's done. He's retiring. This is it. Can't bet on a retiring fighter. So
the R word. Hey, Masvidal reinforced that stereotype that I've got on Saturday.
He hasn't even said the R word, but at 42, he's the longest currently tenured UFC fighter, right? And I just don't know how much longer he's going to stay that. And the odds even show you as the dude Zak Cummings hasn't fought in 600 years, and he's still a favorite. Like that's at your weight class. Like that's not good. So
he can move is the thing. That's the key difference between these guys.
Yeah. So I'm on. I like this fight to go the distance, though, mind you, because I don't think Ed's finding his short fuse finish, and I think Cummings will take his time. And I don't know, I don't know that he's necessarily a devastating finisher to begin with. So there you go.
Fair enough. TB, what do you think? You look very deep in thought over there.
Yeah. I was kind of curious. So I had a little theory. You guys will have to help me out a little bit. So I feel like the reason we haven't seen Ed Herman for a while, it doesn't really have to do with so much. They just got pissed off that so many of his fights were getting canceled last minute. Like there was that one where like on fight night, he ended up like at the bar drinking because they canceled his fight like that night. And he was like, fuck this. Then they almost had a last second replacement because someone else's fight got canceled. But he already left and got drunk and left the COVID quarantine. So I feel like he was just like, fuck all this quarantine shit. Fuck all these fight cancellations. He had a massive Christian fight that he had to pull out of for the Adesanya Whitaker. He had the Marquez fight where he withdrew. John Alon withdrew out of another fight. He had like multiple canceled fights with like Gerald Mearshard and Daun Jung. So they've been trying to get him here. I'm curious if this fight even happens. I have a feeling that it's just going to fucking get canceled. So my breakdown comes down to this. It's going to be sloppy. Just bet the over. It's going to be hilarious. It's going to be funny.
The one thing, it may go with the over. I almost kind of want to retract the fight goes distance a little bit because the only thing I see, it's one of those things, it's a light bulb. Zak Cummings, right? 12 wins by submission. Ed Herman, 6 losses by submission.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So
Lord.
if you can get some decent, they somehow
Ooh.
line it wrong, you can get some good money there. I like that. As a grandma, we like to call that a grandma's couch cushion play, right? You dig into grandma's couch cushion, nobody's even going to notice that's missing. So you sneak in there, you grab that, you put that on Zak Cummings by submission. Let's say they give it to you plus 450. You know what I'm saying? Let's fucking go. But you're gonna give me like a plus 180, like whatever. You're already hip to it.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it one bit. I was going to go ahead and mention here before we moved on to the next fight is that Zak Cummings has 0 wrestling. He's another one of these guys. He's a Sean Strickland archetype where he's so good on the ground, but he really relies on like a trip or a knockdown or a scramble or his opponent shooting. He doesn't wrestle. So if Ed gets tired and decides to shoot a sloppy takedown, we've got a very clear submission opportunity on our hands. So that might be a very sneaky look for this one, a late submission after Ed slows down and gasses out, because I think that's very much on the table in this fight.
Yeah.
But it's another call the orderlies type of spot, though. This one's rough.
It could get sketchy. Yeah.
Zach by sub or Zach by decision. So, or Ed. Yeah, that's it. That I don't think.
Don't mind it.
I think Ed hangs up the gloves after. That's a minus 200 bet that I think cashes.
Fireball and popcorn all night, boys. This entire damn card. There's so many spots that we're just like, don't bet that one. All right, everybody, let's move this show along here. It is Raw Dog season, baby. Brandon, Raw Dog, Royval. We are done with the retirement fighters. We are done with the bums. We've got legitimate title implications on the line when Raw Dog takes on Matheus Nicolau, who has been the dark horse of this division, a young man who was cut by the UFC very similarly to the champion Brandon Moreno, has worked his way back up and is now on a winning streak and looks to be in extremely dangerous form. I love this fight, guys. I love this fight so much. These fighters are yin and yang. You've got Brandon Royval, who's the master of chaos. He causes scrambles, and you can't keep pace with him. He waits for you to make one tiny baby mistake in that chaos, and he thrives there. Versus Matheus Nicolau, who is maybe the most structured fighter in the division. He's very calculated. He's always got his guard up high. He makes every correct move. He doesn't leave you any openings. He's a bit low volume because of it, but boy, does he make you pay for it when you slip up. It's going to be extremely interesting to see which fighter makes the slip up first, because I expect Brandon Royval to get in there and keep his usual pace. He ain't scared of shit. He's not afraid to get hit and then throw a spinning elbow and hit you on the chin to get it back. That's what he does. So he's going to push the pace in this fight regardless of what Nicolau does. And Nicolau, on the other hand, is going to have to decide, do I get behind on the scorecards, or do I play it patient and wait for a shot where I can land a bomb? Very similarly to how he dealt with Matt Schnell. Now, the Matt Schnell spot, I loved that spot. The KO for Nicolau was just a gift in that fight, because Schnell is chinny. Schnell is so chinny. It's a massive problem for him, and I knew Nicolau was going to connect and just bomb on him at some point. Well, Raw Dog has a bit of a durability issue himself. It's not the same thing. His chin seems to be okay, but we've seen the shoulder issues, right? We've seen like his shoulder pop out and things like that. He's a bit slim. He's a bit skinnier. He doesn't have the muscle that guys like Nicolau do. So that could be a bit of a problem here in this spot as well. I'm having a real hard time picking this fight, guys. I do think it probably should be a little closer to like a pick 'em, because I could see either of these guys getting off on their offense and having success with it. It's just going to come down to who makes the right moves on the night of the fight. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Nicolau in his 2 losses has been finished. He's been knocked out both times. He's been finished. And Brandon Royval is more of a submission guy than a knockout guy, but he does have 3 knockout wins, and he does the club and sub. If he hurts you, he'll snatch a neck when he finds his opportunity. He had Pantoja, who is maybe the sleeper for champion in this weight class and who is challenging Brandon Moreno in his next fight for the belt. He had Pantoja melting in that fight, guys. Like, if you go back and you watch that fight, Pantoja was hanging on to his body for dear life, and it seemed like he was fading as that fight went on. Brandon made a mistake, gave him the body triangle, and it was wraps from there because Pantoja is super well-rounded. We know what that guy's capable of. But I felt like Raw Dog was starting to kind of pace himself away in that spot before he got caught. I'm curious if Nicolau can keep up or if he lands that bomb. I think it's dog or pass from a betting perspective. I mean, I might pick Nicolau to win, which hurts my soul just a little bit because I'm a giant Brandon Royval fan, but I can't get behind this number at this point. For me, it would be a shot on the dog. I don't mind the over, and I wouldn't mind looking at Raw Dog sub props because that's what this man does. TB, what do you think?
Yes. So, I mean, I actually, I come away from this fight. I don't think either guy really throws enough. I don't think Royval throws with enough precision. And I don't think Nicolau throws with enough volume to be confident enough about either guy against the other one specifically. Like if Nicolau was willing to, he's never landed more than 75 strikes. And so over 3 rounds, it's just, I think that unless you could confidently be putting and finishing Royval or dropping him, which, hey man, I mean, we saw Kai Kara-France hurt him, but that was followed up by standing up with a spinning back elbow and getting, dropping Kai Kara-France himself. I mean, I actually kind of lean to the idea that this fight might be going the distance here. And I think it's going to be super close. And I think that Nicolau's, a little bit better boxing. And I think that his ability to avoid submissions is what's going to keep him safe on top, similar to Rogerio Bontorin. But I think he's even a little bit more safe defensively overall than a guy like Rogerio. So I'm not confidently picking Nicolau, but I'll take him, and I'll take this fight goes the distance as it comes.
So I am confidently taking Nicolau, and I don't necessarily like your fight goes the distance play, buddy.
Ooh.
So here's the thing. I don't know why you threw out an arbitrary stat like Nicolau not landing more than 72 strikes in a fight where Brandon Royval's never landed more than 34 strikes in a fight. So like that's not good.
That's because most of his fights are like 7 minutes.
Fine, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
But like, if you want to talk about chaos or what you're doing with it, like you talk about Justin Gaethje, you want to talk about chaos. Dude still lands at a high clip.
Look at their pace numbers.
Royval's accuracy, the pace is still. The pace is so high.
I mean, it's 20 strikes per minute at distance. He lands 7 per minute at distance, and he only absorbs 2.37 Brendan Royval. 6.82, so that's 7.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like
I said, I don't think Nicolau throws enough volume for me. It's 7.83 strikes per minute.
Nicolau's footwork is not listed in our stats. His ability, his striking defense, his fight acumen, what he's actually doing out there is high level.
So the precision I talked about.
Correct. But I actually think it's going to prove to be deadly for Brandon Royval, who, by the way, pulled out of a fight in December due to a broken wrist. So he's still fragile. He still gets hurt. I mean, it would take what Nicolau's lost by getting caught in round 1, probably due to a bad weight cut, to have him lose. Otherwise, I think he is the sharper fighter. When you try to create chaos against a guy with really good footwork, you create chaos for yourself, and he gets in and out of the way. He'll piece you up when you overthrow and then move out of the pocket, and you'll get tired and frustrated, pull guard. There's a reason why Nicolau is this level of favorite here. I think I have him right now at -188. So that line has obviously continued to climb from there. So I do like Nicolau, but listen, I don't hate anybody taking a dog shot, especially on somebody like Brandon Royval, who's A, awesome, and B, so dangerous. So
okay,
over 2.5.
I like the dissension.
I like the under. I like the under because either way, because if you like Royval, you have to like him winning by finish. You have to finish Nicolau. And I think Nicolau, like you said, at some point, like with the Schnell fight, that's what made the Schnell fight so interesting. It's like, oh, how will somebody with low pace like Nicolau react to somebody with a high pace like Schnell? Well, he put him down, because when you create chaos and you don't actually hurt somebody, you're the one that gets hurt. So I see a very similar thing happening here. I think Nicolau is absolutely slept on in the division, and also, by the way, is dating Luana Pinejo, who just won her fight as well. Maybe, by the way, but that's a whole nother conversation.
That is definitely a whole nother conversation. We'll
A
leave it at
chronic
that.
combat conversation.
I like it. I like it. All right, everybody. Let's move this along here. Next up, we got Bill Algeo Senior Perfecto comes back against downtown TJ Brown. A couple of really solid fighter nicknames going head to head here in this spot. A couple of young guns, guys that are still looking to kind of break through. TJ Brown is a guy that I've had a real tough time with, because it seems like he is the worst best fighter I think I've ever seen. Like, TJ Brown has everything you'd look for. He's very physical. He's got a solid gas tank. He's got a good will. He doesn't quit on himself. He keeps pushing. He gets cracked, but he fights through it. So, like, the durability checks out. He's got decent striking. He's a good grappler. Like, this guy should be better than he is. And I don't know what the deal is. But he's 3-3 in his last 6. The UFC tried to throw him to a UFC debutante off the Contender Series and Eric Silva last time out. And he still is making the same damn grappling mistake. And that's just like a big asterisk on my notepad for TJ Brown. Is he's a good grappler. He's a good offensive wrestler, but he always makes stupid mistakes. He gets too high up. He falls off. He gets reversed. Like, he does a good job scrambling and getting back into it. He does have the ability, and like Evan's saying, bad fight IQ. Like, that's all I can say about TJ Brown, is he just keeps finding ways to make mistakes. Now, Bill Algeo, on the other hand, he's an interesting puzzle to solve as well. He's another one of these nearly weaponized cardio types, right? Like, he likes to keep a high pace. He likes to just relentlessly attack his opponents. Offense is the best defense. He does not have a good striking defense. He absorbs a lot of damage, but he's willing to just go out there and put a pace on you and land 3 shots to your 1. Every time you land hard on him, he's going to come back and hit you the other direction. 46% striking defense, which is not good. You don't want to be below 50 on the defensive stat here. But he does kind of a Chris Curtis, where he rolls well with the punches. He takes some of that sting off of the shots, so he manages to stay in there. And he just constantly touches you. You've always got something coming at you when you're fighting Bill Algeo. He is stupid durable, never been knocked out, keeps that crazy pace up, 5.68 significant strikes per minute versus the 3.4 for TJ. So not nearly above 2 significant strikes a minute more than his opponent here in this spot. And then I looked at the takedown numbers, and you've got Bill Algeo with a 55% takedown defense rating. And I'm like, that's rough. TJ's is 38%. With him having the ability, like we talked about, to get reversed and just kind of sell it on down the river, I got a hard time not going with Bill Algeo here in this spot. It seems like his numbers, statistically speaking, are just better everywhere over TJ Brown. And even though I feel like TJ could always pull one out of his ass, I just don't think this is the spot. I don't think he's going to be the first guy to crack Bill Algeo and finish him. I don't think he's going to submit him. It's a black belt versus black belt spot. And I know Bill Algeo has the better cardio in this spot. You've got Bill at minus 200, TJ Brown at plus 170. It's the rare favorite or pass situation for me from a betting perspective. I'm going to pick Bill Algeo to go ahead and get the win. And I know a lot of people are saying it in the chat. I do not mind the round 3 sprinkle. If you look for that round 3 submission, honestly, submission anywhere for Bill, just because of the positions that TJ puts himself in, I definitely think that's live. Kind of think it's round 3 or decision myself. It might go all 15 because TJ does seem to be improving ever so slightly. But I think it's Bill by decision, I guess, is going to be the official prediction. Guru, what do you think?
Dude, I think it's a slam dunk. I think the accuracy from Bill Algeo will prove to be more effective than TJ Brown's, right? The striking accuracy there. And I also feel that, like you said, that the fight's going to go the distance. That was really what I came away with most. I'm still, doing my research for all these fights, if I'm just being completely honest to everybody. Our show is until Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in case you didn't somehow know that. Every Wednesday for every UFC card, guess for free. But anyway, it's different over on YouTube if you want to subscribe. But I think Bill Algeo probably pulls away here. The one thing you said, and it's so funny about TJ Brown, right, is that he is the worst best fighter. And at plus 170, that's when you play TJ Brown. You don't play him as a favorite, God forbid. But at plus 170 against a guy in Bill Algeo who himself has a 52% career finishing like equity, himself. Like he's not a finisher. So I don't, you don't want to bet on a minus 200 favorite if you don't expect him to get a finish. So don't mind anybody taking a shot on TJ Brown. He certainly will have the wrestling upside. He attempts 6 takedowns per 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. We'll be nice this time. I got Bill Algeo too. But I think one of the reasons here, I think Bill Algeo now or TJ Brown are going to finish each other in this spot. So while you could take a juice favorite that is probably not liable to find a finish, I mean, let's be real, the only guy he finished in the UFC so far was Herbert. I can't make it out of the first round Burns. I mean, the gas tank just drops off considerably at that point. And Bill Algeo, good job. You did what you were supposed to. But TJ, I mean, he's been to decision plenty in the UFC. That's what he does. I mean, the Jordan Griffin sub, it's different. Jordan Griffin's a bit more aggressive in his setups. I've got Bill Algeo down for 0 submission attempts in his UFC career here. Like, he really doesn't necessarily look to lock up a choke. It's just he's such a good defensive grappler that you're not going to have hopes of submitting him, even if you do end up with your 29% of control rate against him. So I'm not rushing to bet Bill Algeo, but he's my pick. But I do like this fight. The over fight goes the distance here. That's what I'll be taking. Let's see, what do we got it at? Over 2.5 is minus 210. So yeah, juicy. Maybe there's not much to play here, from a value perspective.
That's a little juicier than I would have liked it to be. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, way too juicy. So yeah, we move on. There's plenty of other spaces to make money on this card, and I don't think you should put a little Algeo parlay somewhere. Find a couple pieces if you want to have some fun. But that's not a best bet. Don't go too crazy on this one.
That's fair. I do like the overlook. Unfortunately, the bookies appear to be wise to it because they're also looking at the same thing that we are seeing right now. I think that's a great move. And, the chat mentioned it a little bit earlier. Apparently, if Thug Nasty is going to be in TJ's corner, if he's working with Bryce Mitchell, you'd kind of expect that wrestling to get better. That's the kind of teammate that working with throughout a camp is going to make those improvements. And you guys hit the nail on the head. TJ Brown is not a guy you want to lay a favorite price tag on, but I wouldn't hate him as a dog. That's not a bad angle. He's the type of guy that will fight for your money, that won't quit on you in there. So yeah, if he's improving, if he's working with a good camp, if you like that plus, I don't hate it. Like I said, I'm not betting Bill Algeo at minus 200, so I'll pick him to win. You could absolutely convince me that TJ Brown at plus money is probably an okay bet in this spot.
Yeah.
All right. We are getting there, boys. Just a couple more fights to go. And of course, my dumbass was sitting here reading through the chat instead of getting the next set of slides queued up here for the show. So I'm just going to buy a second here with rambling. Next up, right. We're talking Clay, the Carpenter Guida. My shout out my father-in-law. He always calls him first generation upright. He believes he's the last living caveman still among us here. Taking on Rafa gifted García. And this one's tough, guys. This one is really, really tough. I've actually had a bit of a tough time with Rafa García fights.
So tough.
I've been zigging when I've been zagging. I've been really wrong when it comes to breaking down this guy.
Son of a kid! Hey, Marshall! You ever get tired of being
That's hysterical.
I can't stand it. I'm over it. I don't want to be wrong on Rafa García fights anymore. I think I bet on him versus Drakkar close. I bet against him on Jesse Ronson. I believe I bet on him for the Natan Levy fight. I did get on him for the Natan Levy fight, but he really, really impressed me in his last fight against Mahashate. Now I know Mahashat is he's super, super big for the weight class, right? Super slow, super marauding. The wrestling game plan was there. It worked well for Rafa. But the thing Rafa did really well is he didn't gas himself out. And that's been something I've been a little critical of on Rafa. He starts really fast. He's got great wrestling. He's very durable. He's never been finished, but he slows down and he looks like he's on death's door deep in the third round. What I heard, and I believe, I'm not sure if it was commentary or in an interview, but it sounds like his coaches identified that he was kind of gassing himself out going so hard early on. And they asked him to like take 15% off his punches, take 20% off his punches, like keep the pace, keep the volume, go on, go forward, but just don't try to take their head off with every single swing. And that worked wonders against Mahashat in that fight. He had a much better fight, was able to go the full 15 minutes, was able to survive. He was able to get on top. Now, again, it was against a weak grappler, and that seems to be where Rafa can really do his damage against somebody who he can take down and maul in the grappling. That's not the case here with Clay Guida. Like Clay Guida is your friendly neighborhood Energizer Bunny. This guy does not stop. He's got cardio for days. He always has. I'll bet you he could outpace most UFC fighters when he hits 45. Like there's something wrong with Clay Guida. We need to donate his body to science once he passes, because much like Yoel Romero, like there's just something special about this human. And if we can extract it and get it in the gene pool going forward, we will all live much, much longer lives. I can't believe the pace this guy puts on people. He got away with that split decision versus Holtzman. I'll be honest, I felt he deserved it. I did think Clay Guida was the right side for that decision. So props to him for getting that win. But at 41, you just never know when the cliff is coming, right? Like I always say, 40-year-old fighters or higher, you have to have a damn good reason to bet on them. I don't have a damn good reason to bet on Clay Guida. You could convince me. You absolutely could convince me that Clay Guida is the right side in this spot because of his cardio, because of his pace, because he refuses to fuck off, and Rafa will eventually get tired and he won't be able to hit takedowns, so Clay will edge out a split decision. I could see it. And at plus 210, that's not a bad spot. Rafa is a minus 250 favorite here in this spot. But I think Rafa hits harder. And we talked about the judges. We talked about how they're favoring the big moments, the big damage. I think Rafa hits harder, and I think he'll steal moments in this fight with the big damaging strikes. I don't know that Clay is going to have success taking García down. So if anybody does get on top in the wrestling, it probably will be Rafa. I don't know. But Clay Guida just pushes such a pace on people. Guys, he's got nine split decisions over the course of his UFC career. I believe he may be the holder for a record of split decisions in the UFC. So if they give me a nice juicy plus prop on that split decision, you know, it's always sitting around plus 300, plus 350. I mean, if they're not expecting this one and they give us like a 4.5 or a 5-1, that's the move. Because it's Clay Guida. He's always going to fight close. Nobody's getting finished in this fight. I think it goes the distance. Over 2.5 is a great parlay piece. I lean to Rafa García. I don't like the minus 250. That's basically where I'm at on this one. I believe Guru's up.
Yeah, no, I think you teed me up perfectly because you said that. No, dude, I agree. You said that this is a perfect parlay piece, and I agree. You parlay it to the last fight, Bill Algeo fight, to go the distance. You parlay them both at a little plus money. I'm a little chalky boy taking a little chalk. It's all right.
Drinking
Whatever.
a juice.
I'm just eating the chalk, and that's what we do. And we hope for 2 long fights that we can watch. And that's really kind of my big take on it. Rafa García, right, is somebody a little bit younger, a little bit more explosive. But Clay Guida got that dog in him. And he's one of my favorites of all time. And you love dog money Clay Guida the most. So I get, damn, you really can't hate that split decision shot. So I'm good. I'm doing my parlay. So TB, what do you got?
Wow, I actually like that. I'll give you
don't
that.
You don't
I
hate it.
actually
You
like
actually like it.
exactly. Yeah, I would say you
Wow.
could go ahead, tee that up, get the odds, and go
Oh,
ahead
you
plug that
tee
in.
that up.
Plug that in
Tee
for a
you up.
unit, baby. Because it's like these are the two fights where, oh my god, we just had so many round one finishes. I watched the promo content for the main and the co-main event another 4 times each. Oh my god, we need 2 fights to go the distance. Oh fuck. All right, we found Algeo and Guida. Good. We did it. We made it. So yeah, great. Parlay him. That's it. You want to pick a side? All right, I'm gonna go fucking Clay Guida because Rafa Garcia, I get it. He's gonna have all the, the busier punching. I'm sorry, Rafa Garcia. He might have the bigger power. I can't get the vision of him versus Chris the Grits Grutzmacher out of my mind. I just can't do it. Grits is like the exact same thing that Clay Guida is gonna do, except Guida's actually in better shape and like a somewhat more reliable striker somehow. But yeah, I'm
And talk about recency bias in the line. Sorry, TB. Talk about recency bias in the line too. Clint, since you've mentioned it to start your podcast, I've been thinking about it so much more, and it's just like same idea. He's a pick'em versus Mahashata basically, and now he's heavy favorite versus Clay Guida, the dog, the big bad dog. I don't know about that.
Well, he learned from Steve Garcia. You don't just run face first into the fists of Mahashata. You just take him down.
I believe if you watch this weekend's fights, Steve Garcia still has not learned that lesson, and he ran face first into Nuremberg.
Well, he figured it out, didn't he? He got his life together.
He did.
You love to see it. All right. Opinions all over the place on this one. That's going to be a fun fight. And I do agree with you guys. I think this fight is going to have some overs in it. We've had a lot of finishes. We've been blessed with violence recently in the UFC. I think there's several fights this card where overs may be the sneaky look. And maybe, I was tempted to kick Guru out of the stream because we just don't have any chalk donkeys on this show. But he's right. There are several spots where I think maybe even a little bit of those over parlays. It might be low-hanging fruit here this week. So just giving you shit, Guru. I actually think that's a good, solid way to look at some of these fights this week.
I've tried to avoid the chalk so much, and I feel like sometimes I avoid plays I shouldn't. Like, for example, I really loved the over in the Kelvin Gastelum Chris Curtis fight, but it was chalky, and I didn't eat the chalk. But you know what? It cashed. So.
Yeah.
Thoughts.
Yeah. It sometimes I like to say sometimes square is sharp. We get, I don't know if you guys play poker. I don't know if you guys play
poker. Does
poker.
have 4 corners, right? So there's 4 sharp points.
Exactly. No, but I play poker. I used to play poker a lot. That's actually what got me started gambling. Before I got into sports betting, I learned how to, pot odds and stuff like that. I learned how to calculate all that stuff by studying poker. And there's this thing they like to call fancy play syndrome, right? Like once you think you're ready to run the table, once you just think you're better than everybody else, you start going a little too far. You push it just a little too hard. You bluff the wrong guy because I'm hot right now. I can't lose. Of course, this guy's going to fold to me. And I think that happens a lot in betting too, because we've got spots where, and I do this all the time. I mean, last week was a perfect example. In the PFL, Pacheco, inside the distance. She's dropping a weight class. She's facing somebody who's incredibly durable. They hung a minus 185 on her to finish inside the distance, like she's Francis Ngannou or something. And we all ate it. We all jumped right on in. Easiest bet in the world is right there. Of course, we're super shark to just chalk up and lay this bad boy. That was awful. That was terrible. And there was no, you couldn't even make the value argument on that one.
Nope.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm feeling myself a little too much, get a little too hot, thinking, you know what? I'm sharp. I'm smart. I know better than these bookies do. This should be minus 300. No. That's a bad line. It's women's MMA. You don't lay minus 185 on a finish prop in women's MMA. We know this. We all thought a little too hard. We thought ourselves down a drain. And I think that happens here in these spots. And that's where, you know what, if it's an overfight, boys, it's an overfight. You can find, you got to dig, you got to look for those gems. But sometimes you also got to kind of step back, look at the whole picture and go, am I trying too hard right now? And I kind of think that's what we were doing. Guru, I see you dancing. I'm going to give you a minute. What?
No, I can't, because I can't take full credit for it. So I have to be fully transparent. Mr. Mike, Couch Warrior Pod, had tweeted out his plays for PFL, and I just read them. And one of his plays, and it was a sharp one, was that fight to go the distance. And the second I read it at plus money, I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't even, and by the way, I didn't even know anything about the weight cut for her. Because again, that's how little I was paying attention. But I was just like, yeah, Juliana Budd's tough. Why is Pacheco just going to finish her? She just won, but she didn't finish Kayla Harrison. It was a 5-round decision. This is a 3-round fight. So I took it. And then, I made a little extra money for the UFC card.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was
so
beautiful.
I wasn't dancing on you. It was tough. But I feel what you're saying, like in terms of just getting caught up in the stir of everything.
Yeah. And that's one that, similar to you, I didn't give it the full amount of research, and I kind of just got caught up in the moment, and it was just an easy, real quick, sling it from the gun. I know better than that. I'm all put. No. That was a bad freaking bet, boys. Bad bet. So congrats on being sharp. Shout out to the Couch Warrior Podcast, another awesome member of the community. I do think that's definitely a way we need to look at it. Speaking of overs, Pedro Munhoz.
Yes. Maybe all 3 of them.
Is taking on El Guapo, Chris Gutierrez. Boys, they are legitimately fighting over the title of Leg Kick King on Saturday. These are the 2 men. We compare them to one another. Every time they get into a fight, we break them down. We're like, he throws a lot of leg kicks. Reminds me of Pedro Munhoz. You know who he reminds me of? Gutierrez. They're always just beating up that front leg. I can't wait. I don't know if they're going to defend the leg kicks. I don't know if they're just going to kick the shit out of each other's legs, Jose Aldo style. Like, this is for the crown of Leg Kick King in the UFC. The big thing for me, Pedro Munhoz is 36 years old, so he's not at that ancient, spot yet. I'm not looking to fade him based on his age yet, but he's older. He's got a much higher level of competition. Sean O'Malley, Dom Cruz, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Algeo Sterling. But he's 1-4-1. Obviously the Sean O'Malley eye poke situation, it's the first time he's fought since that disaster happened. I still feel a little bad for him about the way everything went down in that spot. Chris Gutierrez, on the other hand, 31 years old, guns blazing, 4-fight win streak, TKO'd Frankie Edgar, spinning back fist knocked out Denat Bakary. I mean, this guy is hotter than hell right now. I love this fight, and I cannot wait to see it play out, but I'm having a real hard time telling you how it plays out. Because when you get 2 grapplers, sometimes you end up with a shitty striking match. We got 2 leg kickers. Do they box? Do they wrestle? Like, I'm not quite sure what these guys are going to do coming in here. Chris Gutierrez is a minus 205 favorite. You've got Pedro Munhoz plus 175. I always feel like Pedro Munhoz is a good dog that'll fight for your money. I always feel like he's a guy that you can go to war with. And I do absolutely believe that he's still got gas in the tank. The Sean O'Malley fight really isn't enough to deter me. It's not enough to give me a bad opinion of him in that spot. He had Dom Cruz hurt badly in the first round of their fight and then just couldn't track him down. Couldn't find him. And Chris Gutierrez, on the other hand, man, that round 1 against the Bakary was not good. He did not look great early in that fight. In fact, the spinning back fist knockout was kind of a comeback win. He looked like he was really struggling in that spot. I'm going to wait to see these guys size up. I'm curious just how much bigger Chris is than Pedro Munhoz. I think the size will make some kind of a difference. I'm going to pick Gutierrez. I'm going to be boring. I'm sorry. This is a complete pass for me. Again, I wouldn't mind a split decision prop, and I wouldn't mind the overs, because when you got guys that can kick legs like these dudes do, you got to think they also probably know how to check them. Their shins are, calloused up. They're going to be fine absorbing damage coming the other way. Pray we don't see an Anderson Silva situation on Saturday. I think these guys can probably make it the full 15. That'd be the way I would look. TB, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought the Jose Aldo fight, the way that he was able to completely counter all the leg kicks of Munhoz and just looked a complete weight class bigger. I mean, Gutierrez is going to be 3 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage, 3-inch leg reach advantage. I mean, he should be a little bit quicker too with the boxing, I think also.
Yeah.
I think Gutierrez is the pick here. I'm not tempted to really go too heavy at the minus 205. I think it's extremely fair where the line's at. I think it's basically a 2-1, and I think once again the scorecards could just come out that way, 2-1. And I do ultimately think that Gutierrez is going to take this fight. I think even he showed against Kalaris, like he could even get in a little top position here or there, to get out of his own bad spot. He can get in his own good positions. I don't think Munhoz has showed that he's willing to wrestle against anybody anytime recently. The only time he's really gotten anywhere near 5 minutes of control in his career was against Brett Johns back in 2018. The only other time he's gotten more than 2 minutes of control was against Damian Stasiak. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is Pedro Munhoz is like a boxer who has a black belt if you try to take him down. He doesn't really get controlled by anybody either. So, if anything, maybe Munhoz tries taking the offensive wrestling approach, doing the late career change like Rafael Assunção, where it was like, really start digging into that offensive wrestling to change who you are as a fighter. But I don't envision in a guy like Munhoz that loves to stand and bang. And I mean, he's got the chin to hold him up too. I think this fight, added in as the third leg to that other one, Hopefully, I think this one goes the distance too.
Steal my thunder, won't you?
Yeah, there you go. We got
my thunder.
Yeah.
Won't you? Yeah, no, exactly. You have to add this one into that parlay. All three of them over 2.5. If I goes the distance parlay, it's gonna hit. So let's cash that. Gutierrez,
anti-violence.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with all that being said,
Mushroom's going to be said.
Chris Gutierrez, if anyone's going to do it, it would be Chris Gutierrez, because where has Pedro Munhoz been, by the way? He got poked in the eye and took a year off, basically 10 months. What's he been doing? So
that's a great question.
Yeah, so 36 years old. Chris Gutierrez has been 31, surging, bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic. I mean, he's if there's Pedro Munhoz 1.0, he's Pedro Munhoz 2.0. He's better than him at the thing that he does best, which is going to be, being durable and kicking legs. So I like Chris Gutierrez a lot here. I kind of lean. I like him up to minus 250. I think it's like a 70%er. So
okay, all right.
I don't mind it.
I don't mind a bold call on a favorite. I talk about it. It's always easy for us to argue that there's line value on underdogs. It's tougher for us to argue there's line value on favorites sometimes, but it's there. You just got to know when to look for it. Maybe this is one of those spots, and I'll be very curious to see how this one plays out on Saturday. All right, everybody. Next up, we've got Ion Cutelaba, the Hulk, my guy. I'm honestly surprised he got another call. I thought he was going to get released, but he's way too damn entertaining. You knew they were going to give him another shot. Taking on Tanner Boser, welcoming Tanner down to 205 pounds. That's right. The Bulldozer, Canada's own, has finally gotten rid of the belly, taken it seriously, cut himself down, and he's making his light heavyweight debut. This is such a crazy fight to me, you guys. I love Ion Cutelaba from an entertainment factor. I mean, we've got the pretending to be hurt and wobbled knockout call because he faked out the ref so well. We've got the illegal downed knees. He's always grabbing the damn fence. Like, Ion Cutelaba will do whatever it takes to win a fight. The problem is he just doesn't win fights anymore. He is 1-5-1 over his last 7. Oh my God. Like this guy, so many other people would have been let go by this point, but he's so damn entertaining. The UFC's kept him around. He's a minus 130 favorite over Tanner Boser, who's coming down and really desperately needs a win himself. Tanner's 20-9. He is 3-3 over his last 6, but he's on a 1-3 skid in his last 4. The problem, I think, for me with Tanner is that he's the guy that will not make any improvements whatsoever in his game. He won't put it on himself to get better at get-ups. He won't put it on himself to get better at wrestling, but he'll bitch all day at the ref for not standing him up when his opponent is laying on top of him. Like, that is a massive sign to me. It's a giant weakness in his game that he just refuses to address. That he's like, man, if these guys just quit taking me down, we'd have a good fight. No, bro. Like, wrestling's part of the game. You've got to learn to defend the takedown. That's on you. And now he's hopping down a weight class where hopefully he's got a strength advantage over guys, and hopefully it means he can get himself back up to his feet and fight the game plan that he wants to have. Problem is, I'm not sure he can cut down to 205 healthy. I mean, he looks like a monster. You go check his Instagram out, and he looks like he's in great shape. This guy is the Pedro Munhoz of the heavyweight division, or I guess was of the heavyweight division, but he's got crazy leg kicks on him. I think he's got like 3 leg kick TKO victories. Like, he will chew your leg up at range. So you've got to be all in or all out on Tanner Boser. And I wonder what his power looks like down a weight class, because he's got hands. He's got really smooth boxing. He had fast hands at heavyweight, but I worry he'll lose the speed. And that's always been his best attribute at heavyweight, is he's faster than these other guys. I don't know if he's going to have that speed advantage down here at 205. So if he's not quite as strong, or if he doesn't have quite the gas tank because he's dropping an extra 30-ish pounds, I don't know that he'll be able to keep the pace he normally does for 15 minutes. And if he can't do that, and he's taking on a guy like Ion, who is desperate to save his UFC job and will probably take this fight a whole lot slower than normal, I think we could see a greasy Ion Cutelaba decision, you guys. Like, that's madness to think that Ion will show fight IQ and ever put your money on that is terrifying. But I actually think he might slow down a little bit in this fight. And when he goes to the wrestling, we know Tanner Boser can't wrestle. We know he struggles with that, and it pisses him off. If nothing else, Ion Cutelaba is going to win the mental battle by putting him on his back. This is a great test for both guys to see who really belongs here. I think I'm actually picking Ion Cutelaba. It's close to a pick 'em. I don't know that I want to gamble on this fight because I've lost money on Ion Cutelaba's fight IQ before. Let's see what you guys have to say. TB, talk to me.
Oh, baby. It's Iwan all day. Let's just put it this way. So there's a common theme to the people that have been able to finish Ion Cutelaba. Let's give you their names. Kennedy and Nzechukwu, Johnny Walker, Ryan Spann, Magomed Ankalaev, Glover Teixeira, Jared Cannonier, Misha Serkunov. All guys that have either really great wrestling / grappling or are athletic freaks. And that's just about all of them. Now, when you give them a guy like Devin Clark, Khalil Roundtree, Gadzimiro Vantagulov, Henrique de Silva, those guys absolutely get slaughtered. And Tanner Boser, I mean, he's making the cut of his life down to 205 here. He's not doing it with the nutritionist. He's just eating a lot of deer meat. I'm just ordering a whole deer and just cooking it and just working out, eating more protein. I'm doing it myself. I listened to the interviews. Yeah, I mean, he knows that it's his contract on the line versus Boser's contract versus Cutelaba's contract on the line. And Cutelaba, I mean, we want to talk about, fight IQ, whatever. I mean, he shot 8 takedowns against Kennedy. He got a takedown against Johnny before he got, reversed, sadly against the better athlete, the bigger guy. Ryan Spann, he landed 3 takedowns on until that guillotine finally sunk in. Devin Clark shoots 12 takedowns, lands 8. Dustin Jacoby shoots 19 takedowns, lands 9. I mean, Ankalaev, the poor guy, got slept 2 times, so he didn't even get a chance to shoot or land any. But Khalil Roundtree, I mean, 4 out of 5. It's just over and over. You see, if he doesn't ice the guy on the feet, he's shooting takedowns against everybody. And he's successful against everybody. I don't think that Tanner Boser's got the juice to get a finish on the mat. I don't think Tanner Boser's got the juice to get a reversal on the mat. I don't think Tanner Boser's got the juice to even stand up if this fight gets down to the mat. I mean, he's got to finish Cutelaba on the feet, and I don't think he does. I got Iwan Cutelaba.
Okay.
No. No. You can't make me pick a side. You can't. And that's that. Because no. Tanner Boser is about as sketchy as they come in terms of game plan and cutting weight, neat and deer. Like, what do we? He's the same guy that refused. That he said he was insulted when people asked if he'd go to light heavyweight, and here we are with him at light heavyweight. And Ion Cutelaba, somebody way more exciting, and shouldn't very exciting-ish, but low fight IQ and will snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, and just a big pile of nope. So if I'm doing anything, I'm going under 1.5 at plus 105. Both guys have, you shake your head and you keep doing that, but both guys, like you said, have their contract on the line. You've already said that Ion is exciting and that he's still in the UFC for a reason. And if you look at their recent fights, more often than not, they've gone under. Boser's had, I guess, two of his last 5, or I should say 3 of his last 6. So that's 50%. If I want to use that sample size, so whatever. Either way, it'd be 1 of his last 2, so it's fine. And then for Ion Cutelaba, similar idea, except the last 3 in a row have been under 1.5, and they're still giving me plus money on it again here. So, yeah, I'm taking under 1.5 if you're making me say something. Otherwise,
wow,
why would you bet this fight at all?
Okay. I'm kind of more with you there, Guru. I don't really know that I want to buy this fight. We'll see. I mean, maybe I, get there throughout the week, but this is another one that's a fireball and popcorn fight for me. I think I'm going to be drinking a lot this week, boys, because there's a lot of these fights that there's too many questions. I need to see Boser in action before I decide I want to jump in on him and see if his takedown defense is just as bad. I've got to see if the speed advantage is there for Ion. I lean Ion big time here in this spot, but I definitely don't know that I want to have anything on it before we actually see that bell ring, or I guess hear the bell ring here. Shout out to the club and sub in the chat. Where was this anti-Boser sentiment when I was smashing Nascimento? Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I've never been anti-Boser. In fact, I've bet on Boser quite a lot. I liked his skill set at heavyweight. I'm just not convinced it's going to translate. The weight class jump is a big question here for me. And shout out MMA Jesus coming in. Ion does absolutely have horrible fight IQ, and that's why I can't put my money on him, because I can't trust the guy that makes those kinds of decisions. All right, everybody, we are getting to the good stuff here. Just a couple fights left to talk about. Do us a favor, hit the like button. Thank you one more time again for spending your evening here with us. These are the boys from the Chronic Combat Conversations podcast, TB and Guru. Show them some love over online. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter and on YouTube, of course, for their own show later on this week. The next fight we want to talk about is Azamat Murzakanov, the professional, 12-0, undefeated, ancient man, 36 years old, taking on Dustin Jacoby, Factory X Muay Thai's own. And guys, I've got just a bad taste in my mouth from Azamat Murzakanov. He's explosive. He's old. He hits like a truck. He has a lot of round 1 knockout finishes on his record, but I went, you know what? Fuck all that noise. He's overhyped. He's coming off a KO on the Contender Series. And you know what I do with people coming off the Contender Series? I fade the shit out of them. And I bet big time on Tayfon Nchukwi. And Tayfon beat the brakes off this man for 10 minutes. For 10 straight minutes, Tayfon beat the brakes off of him. And then you know what happened? Tayfon's coaches went, go get a finish, bro. 3rd round. You go finish this man. And he ran face first into a knee. My money, I could feel it like, no. It was like pulling slowly away from my hand. It was there, and then it was gone. And then he does the same damn thing to Devin Clark, knocks him out in the 3rd round, which you guys know how I feel about Devin Clark. Essentially, this guy's got 2 knockout wins in the UFC. Both of them a little memey. Both of them, against guys that I don't respect whatsoever. And now he's getting the big jump up over Dustin Jacoby, who was a phenomenal glory kickboxer before he made the transition over to MMA. I feel like he got robbed in that last fight. I thought he deserved to get his hand raised against Khalil Roundtree. It was a split. It was close. I get it. But I thought Dustin did enough. I think part of the reason I had such a bad year last year, though, was the bad juju I got from flipping when I had Dustin Jacoby as my selection, and I had Andrew Gomes on the show that day, and he reaffirmed that Dustin Jacoby was the side. And then instead of pulling the trigger and just letting it ride throughout the week, I convinced myself that Da Un Jung was a live dog and the side. I went against my own analysis. I went against my co-host's analysis, one of the sharpest damn minds in the game, and I lost a pile on Da Un Jung. And that's what started the roller coaster of last year. It was all downhill, so it wasn't really a roller coaster, but I think I've been cursed ever since then, and we kind of shook it. But this right here is my opportunity to show the MMA gods that, once again, I'm a believer. Show the MMA gods that I will not underestimate a man the caliber of Dustin Jacoby. If Tafon and Chukwi can outstrike this man and avoid getting nuked for 10 minutes, I think Dustin Jacoby can too. I'm going to pick Dustin Jacoby. I think he's got the back class. I think he's got the skill. I think he's got the pedigree to be able to outstrike this man and then not make the dumb mistake of giving him his opportunity deep in the fight. Dustin Jacoby for me all day. TB, what do you think?
Yeah, man, it's Jacoby all day. I mean, you got the size, you got the youth, you've got. I would. Damn, I mean, I guess Jacoby is slightly older, but the size and the activity, and even the finishing capability if it gets there. I think Asman Mirzakhanov, if he had lost either one of the Nchukwi or Clark fights at this point, I mean, we'd be seeing like a -300 on Jacoby if they somehow made this matchup. This could be a gift from the gods line. At -170, it's kind of in that range of like, you can make a solid straight play. And in retrospect, this could look like, why was this guy not a -500? You're getting a guy with that much UFC experience versus someone with 2 fights, versus someone that's had to rely on 24 and 26 distance strikes landed in each of his. I mean, Dustin Jacoby does that in the first 2.5 minutes of the first round, right? If he's not knocking you out. So, yeah, I mean, give me Jacoby here. I don't even want to play an over or anything like that. I think you could just do it straight at -170. You could, you could lay enough to make enough back on that one. Don't worry, we got a little doggy coming up.
Oh, that's my turn. Let's go. I was waiting for no, but it's good. Let's I love Dustin Jacoby. I was on him versus Darren Jung. TB and I went head to head. So I've yet to pick against Dustin Jacoby, and I'm not starting now. We can just kind of leave it there. I mean, I think he's a better striker. He's a good kickboxer, and you gotta watch his fight. Watch his kickboxing fight with Alex Pereira. Like, that's the way that you beat him, other than, I guess, the Khalil Roundtree fight where you get a robbery.
Well, Roundtree at least threw 231 strikes, and he stuffed
so
all the takedowns. So at least he threw volume. I mean, fucking Asman Mirzakhanov's never thrown more than 67 strikes. That's fucking terrible. I'm sorry about the language, but geez, it's bad.
No,
this is a children's show. My goodness.
Keep it PG. No, I'm kidding. All right. I like it. We're all riding on the Jacoby side here. I love it. All right. The next fight we want to talk to you about. Guys, I goofed. I messed up. It's my bad. I thought that was the co-main event, but I'm not used to using ShareDog as my my host site here for these tabs, so my mistake. We've still got to talk about Edson Barboza taking on Billy Quarantillo. And it's funny because I talked about it, and I made the mistake of using this example the first time. about fighters of a different race than my own, so I got labeled a racist for making this comment. There's always two. There's always two guys that remind you so much of each other. And when you're doing your tape study, you're thinking about your UFC fights, they just kind of blend into one person in your brain. For me, the Billies do that. You know, Billy Q, and then we talked about him just a little bit earlier in the evening, and now, of course, I'm freaking blanking on his name.
Algeo?
Algeo, Bill Algeo. Thank you. Jeez. Oh, I'm tired, guys. So Billy Q and Bill Algeo, for whatever reason, they become the same person here in my brain.
That's so unbelievably racist. I'm not even sure I can continue to take part of the show.
Well, see, the problem is the first time I did
have
it
to
with
go.
Benny and
I
Bilal.
have to excuse myself.
It was my bad. The first time I was like, Benny and Bilal, they just seem like the same guy to me, and people were like, ah.
So you have it. So you have a history.
I
do.
do
You have a
I
history
do.
of it.
I have a track record.
I can't be a part.
It's bad. And redheads. They all just blend together. Anyway, so he has kind of the same thing going on as Bill Algeo, right? Except maybe even to a greater extent. He puts his foot on the gas and just never lets up. 34 years old. You know, I always talk about how guys are a little bit younger than I expect. He's a little older than I expected. I kind of thought Billy was like a 29, 31 type of person. 34, so he's getting up there. But very similar. Cardio's a weapon. Keeps a high pace. 7.88 significant strikes a minute, guys. Insane output from Billy Q. 40% striking defense. That's even worse than the other Bill. But it's one of those things where he just kind of breaks people over time. Edson Barboza, 37 years old. He's a good old Brazilian balloon. You know, these guys that look like they're about to die on the scales. I don't know how he's still cutting to this weight class, but he fills up just fine and he looks phenomenal in the cage on Saturday. He probably uses that rehydration loophole we've been hearing a lot about thanks to Islam. But he's big, he's powerful, his kicks are insane. You know, we all know about the spinning heel kick. He's kicked people in the head, body, leg. He's knocked somebody out with every single kick in the book. And he's got 75% takedown defense. Barboza will be big on Saturday and has a 5-inch reach advantage. For some reason, I think he's live here. I don't know why. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Billy seems like the type of guy who will leave himself vulnerable to a counter. The problem for me is I've been on this changing of the guard train the entire year, right? I keep talking about how these older fighters are getting ushered out by the new age. I had a hard time with Aldo right before he retired. He got one or two back. You know, there were just one or two fights where we all were ready to leave him for dead, and he showed us he still had it for one more. That might be Barboza here on Saturday. I'm going to pick Billy Q, but I'm not laying minus 180. The plus 155 on Barboza, I think, would be the way I would bet it if I was going to bet it at all. But I don't really know what to do. I'll be honest with you. Barboza is one of these guys that I've learned I do not have a great read on. I'm going to take my spots a little better. There's other spots on this card that I do like. There's other spots on this card that I'm confident in. I'll play those instead. I'm going to pick Billy Q to go ahead and get the win on Saturday. I hope we get a very entertaining fight. It's hard not to with these guys, but I don't think I like it from a betting perspective. Guru, what do you think on this one, man?
I think I can get you interested.
I like that. Sell me.
All right. So if you're interested in pre-flop, which you said you're not, I think if you're interested in pre-flop, like you already highlighted, you really, unfortunately, to love my boy Billy Q, you kind of have to be on Edson Barboza pre-flop, unless you think he's totally, completely washed and hanging up his gloves. Like if that's what you think, then that's fine, and you're not thinking that anyway. But yeah, Barboza's 37, Billy Q is 34. He may be babyface, but they're really, I guess, only 3 years apart. So that's kind of interesting. 5 inches of reach for Barboza, who, again, what are they going to be doing all fight? They're going to be striking, right? That's really interesting. And, because, again, you watch Billy Q's last fight versus Alex Hernandez, and Hernandez, sure, he likes to strike and go crazy, but he'll also mix in some wrestling and do whatever the fuck because he's the great ape, and he just likes to go ape shit in the octagon in there. So, similarly, I think if you want to play Billy Q, I don't necessarily think you play him right now at the money line. I think if you play him, you want to play him like a round 3 decision type prop, maybe a late finish, or best case scenario, and I think this is where I'll sell you the most, Clint. You play him live after round 1. If you like if you're seeing maybe some gas with Bosa, if Billy's held up his own in certain of the kickboxing and done some of his own damage, if Billy's just getting lit up in there, like, another friend of the show, I mean Adrian Yanez, like just getting torched by Rob Font, somebody that he just clearly expected to just go away and has never really eaten a punch like that, I guess. And he went down because I just think he was expecting Font to go down. And I don't know what else to say other than maybe a bad weight cut, but to get knocked out by Font, I mean, that's a tough look. I mean,
I think it was disrespect, man. I think he was looking past Font.
I think so too.
I think he just didn't think Font could hurt him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, TB? What do you think?
Listen, I think that there were a couple of fights basically all the fights you go back and watch Billy, and I really enjoy his personality. I love his perseverance. I think he's an awesome fighter.
Loves cats.
He's a great dude. But what's undeniable is that he doesn't really check leg kicks. He doesn't really dodge any strikes. It's from distance. It's 44% defense. It's slightly better than his overall defense, but yeah, I mean it's really not good. He's absorbing over a strike more per minute from distance than Edson Barbosa, and Billy Q doesn't have great offensive takedown game. A lot of his 41% takedown efficiency is built off of going, one-on-one on Jacob Kilburn, 2 of 3 on Spike Carlisle after he completely gassed out. Oh wait, Spike Carlisle got 8 minutes of control on Billy Q. Then you have the Kyle Nelson fight. He gets 2 of 6, and he goes 3 of 7 on Gabriel Benitez. But you see all these names. It's like, well, you should be doing that to these guys. But I mean, Alexander Hernandez is landing takedowns on him early. Gavin Tucker. Can we talk about the Gavin Tucker fight? Because between the Shane Burgos fight 0 of 14 and Gavin Tucker fight 0 of 3, what happens if you can't take down Edson Barbosa? Because I know standing from distance, is anyone expecting Billy Q to win this fight just standing from distance? Or are we all just expecting him to kind of go Homer Simpson and just kind of take over as the fight goes on? What if he's absorbed way too much damage on his front leg to even plod forward? Because the Shane Burgos fight, that's exactly what happened. He couldn't land anything because he goes for the same body lock takedown instead of dropping down for doubles. He's eating all the same leg kicks, completely raw meat by round 3. The commentary team can't stop talking about it. And at the end of the day, I mean, if Edson Barbosa is not just a shell of himself, which, listen, it's completely possible, but at dog money, if I'm going to take him against, like guys like Giga Chikadze and stuff like that, I mean, you have to consider him here. I mean, it's a huge step down. I think Billy is a huge step up in heart and cardio, but I mean, Bryce Mitchell has probably more heart and cardio than Billy Quarantillo when it comes to offensive wrestling, and a lot more skill. I don't think it's even in the same stratosphere as offensive wrestling goes. And Edson Barbosa, I mean, he doesn't even get taken down necessarily. He gets so worried about the takedown, he like falls down as he gets hit by Bryce. It's not great, but Billy doesn't offer the same threat or athleticism at all. He's only Clinton, 3 years younger.
Yeah. And Clinton, you again, I keep going back to it. You talked about recency bias. Edson Barbosa is a guy that was, very close to pick 'em odds, slightly underdog to Giga Chikadze, right? And the fight before that was evading my mind at the moment. Or the fight after that, sorry, was nobody wants to. Okay, I'll pull it up. Hang on.
Sorry,
I can't remember.
Yeah,
sorry. Bryce Mitchell, yeah, and again, he was. Thank you, Bryce Mitchell. He was only he's only a plus 130 in that fight as well. And you just talk. What would if we line Bryce Mitchell versus Billy Quarantillo right now? What's the line?
Yeah.
So I think it's some recency bias.
Yeah, Shane Burgos got outlanded by Edson Barbosa. I don't think Barbosa has a gas tank.
And I felt that way, and I couldn't do it because I like Adrian, and I couldn't do it. And I felt that way about Rob Font because, again, you look at somebody like Rob Font, he's a favorite versus Jose Aldo, loses. A favorite versus Cheeto, loses. Now all of a sudden he's a dog versus Adrian.
Yeah.
Adrian's not as good as those guys. Unfortunately, and he's not even, unfortunately, at least on that night, as good as Rob Font. So I think this is a time that Edson Barboza could be getting glossed over if he's still got it.
Okay. All right, guys, it's main event time. Max Blessed Holloway makes his return to the UFC cage, taking on Arnold Almighty Allen. This is a fight that I've really struggled with because I was a Max Holloway stan. I mean, I guess still am, right? Not was, is. I love me some Max Holloway. And his ability to just out-volume people is absolutely ridiculous. It is incredible, frankly. And he's only 31, guys. I talked about the age gap. I talked about guys that surprise me, older or younger. Max is only 31. Like, this man, it is not out of question for him to make some adjustments in him and come back and take the belt again. It absolutely is a possibility, especially if Volk moves up to 155 permanently, or if Yair takes the title. Future belt is not out of consideration for Max Holloway. Arnold Allen, though, has been the dark horse of this weight class and has been the dark horse on my betting card. I have been sleeping heavily on Arnold Allen. His boxing is solid. His power is apparently ridiculous. I like this kid. He's big for the division. I always think Max Holloway is a better boxer than everybody. His volume, his technique, the way he was teaching Yair how to punch in the cage, like, those kinds of things just are stuck right here in my brain. Arnold Allen may be the next big thing. Arnold Allen may be this division's Francis Ngannou. I can't. It's Max Holloway for me. I think Max Holloway is going to win this fight on volume. I think Arnold Allen is about to see a new level of the competition here. Dan Hooker obviously is not a guy that strikes the way that Max Holloway does. Calvin Kattar, maybe he does, but that fight ended in a very fluky, awkward knee injury. That's the test that I wanted for Arnold Allen, and it did not end in a satisfying way. Sadiq Youssef, as much as I love that guy, again, couldn't keep pace with Max Holloway ever if they fought. This is a big step up for Arnold Allen. It's a big test for him. We'll see if he's ready for this level. I think if Volkanovski doesn't exist, Max Holloway probably still has the belt. So I'm picking Max Holloway to win this fight. TB, finish this up, man. What do you think here?
Yeah, I think the pace is undeniable. The ability to switch up his game plan if it's not quite going for him is undeniable. And I think finally it's undeniable that this is not Alexander Volkanovski standing across from him. It's not the Dustin Poirier up a weight class. It's not Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier early in his career. I like Max Holloway here. He's shown that coming off a loss to Volkanovski against lower competition, that he's willing to put on a clinic. I think he comes out here similar to, we saw how Arnold Allen was looking pretty solid against Calvin Kattar in the first round before the injury, but that's landing 27 out of 62 strikes. Just as a reminder, Max Holloway landed 439 strikes out of 737 on Calvin Kattar.
That's insane.
In the third fight alone, he lands 109 out of 283 strikes on Alexander Volkanovski, the master of feints, defense, and technique. And Volkanovski goes 175 out of 340. If Arnold Allen threw over 150 strikes this fight, I would be shocked, because I think Max, it's 4-5 decision essentially. And it might even be earlier than that. I think Arnold Allen has shown that he has to be kind of low output to manage his defense. He's great defensively when he can keep the fight at his pace, but he's also shown that he can't. He'll be in a really close fight until he can make a big moment happen. Sadiq Youssef fight, he's basically losing both of those rounds. He gets the knockdown in, before eventually pulling away and getting some control time against Youssef. But I don't think that's something you can really rely on, a big moment against Max, because even if you get the big moment, I can't envision putting Max out cold. I can't envision Max not fighting back. I see him winning either 4 out of 5 rounds or putting him out Rob Font versus Giannis style.
Okay. I like it. Guru, what do you think, man?
Let's get it. I just Tarasenko just tied up that shootout. Oh my goodness. So excited.
There you go.
Yes, love it. Listen,
I was wondering what game you were watching.
Yes, and I was flipping between them and the Mets, of course. My boys.
We got 17 minutes before my Coyotes kick off, so we got to wrap this up anyway.
Let's go. Let's go.
We're wrapping it up. Don't you worry. Listen, I like Max Holloway here. Championship medal. The big thing with Arnold Allen again, and you say dark horse, and that's exactly how I'm going to introduce him on the podcast when we do it on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just think that Arnold hasn't shown enough yet. Calvin Kattar clearly compromised in that fight. Probably had a compromised camp, if I would just being honest. Beating Dan Hooker in Dan Hooker's ridiculous attempt to cut weight, that's not good enough. And Sadiq Youssef fight where you beat him for 2 rounds and gas out in the third doesn't give me any sort of confidence that you're going to outpace and beat Max Holloway in a 5-round fight. So if he does it, he's if he beats Max Holloway, not only does he get an immediate title shot, in my opinion, but I mean, he will be the hottest thing since sliced bread. And that's a big if because it's not happening. I like Max Holloway round 4-5 decision when that prop opens up. I like Max, over 2.5. I like Max. Max should get it done. Arnold Allen's a tough SOB though.
We're gonna go ahead and close the show on a full agreement from all parties here. Let's go, Max Holloway. Get back in the win column here for us, folks. That was the Die Hard MMA podcast, a very special roundtable edition of the show. Thank you, boys, so much for joining me here on this show. It was awesome. Always love talking fights with you guys. The floor is yours. Go ahead and shout them out. Let people know where they can find you, how they can support you, what you got going on. Have at it, guys.
Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Clint is one of our biggest inspirations for starting our own show. We might not be professional gamblers, but we'd like to think that we really know how to break down a fight, and it's fun, putting our bets out there for everybody. Clint, thank you so much for having us on, and make sure you follow us over on YouTube, Chronic Combat Guru. You do the best. You do the best way. So how about you close it out for me?
Listen, guys, thank you so much for letting us listen. Clint, thank you so much for having us on. It really means the world to get invited on from listener to guest. It means the world. You're the fucking man. We're going to have you back again soon, I'm sure. Yeah, listen, guys, if you can follow my unbelievable co-host, TB Scouting, MMA, Twitter, Verdict, Instagram, and Tapology. Me, the Guru on Twitter, at Guru Scouting MMA, Twitter, Verdict, Instagram, and Tapology. Our show, at Chronic Combat on Twitter, at Chronic Combat Conversations on Instagram, and at Chronic Combat Conversations on YouTube, most importantly, where we'd love a subscription and turn on that little alert thing so you know when we're going on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Every UFC card with guests like Clint and some other guests that aren't necessarily as good as Clint, but they're guests nonetheless because Clint is top tier. But that's
Appreciate you guys. As always, it was a good time. Everybody, thank you so much for watching the show. As always, do us a favor, smash the like button on your way out the door. Would very much appreciate it. And we'll see you guys soon enough, right? We got Thursday coming up, the Total Takedown, Friday, the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, and of course, right here on Pub Sports Radio, we do have the Fight Companions where we do the live betting and all that good stuff. And I hope I can make it this week because my ass is going to be drinking with all these bad fights. There's going to be a lot of awesome violence going on, and I will be drunk through most of it. So get out there, kick some ass. Have a great week this week, everybody. Good luck on all your degenerate action. And until next time, let's roll.